And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, yeah.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, for me, still in the 49th state of Alaska, it's 4:05 in the morning. It's starting to get dark again, getting back to normal sleep. There's actually some dark outside. So I was enjoying the midnight sun, but here we are. It's your Friday roundtable. I think we're going to have a great discussion. So Rob and Ron, big guy and no cash, get ready to start biting your nails. You might want to throw darts at this roundtable today. I think John and Marlon and myself might piss you off, but I think this is an important conversation. Let's get down to it. Tactics. Terry versus Ohio Supreme Court cases stops. We'll get into it. This was my bread and butter. This was my life's work. So I really enjoy these conversations. Let's jump into it. Good morning, John. Let's do it.
Morning. Yeah. So the reason for this is the reason we're doing this show today is that we've been noticing time and time again on the NYPD newsfeed, they're putting out the work of the NYPD on there, but they're promoting it as great police work, when in reality, the tactics are horrendous. They're showing huge tactical failures over and over again, whether it's in leadership, whether it's in where people are positioned, whether it's in when they should be going on, when they should be frisking, when they should be arresting, when they shouldn't be turning their back. And we think it's completely dangerous. It's not something we were trained in. And there was a particular video that came out that we'll get into in the confines of the 7-5, where the cops did a great job. They did a great job. Their heart was in the right place. Their head was in the right place. But unlike myself, Eric, and Marlon, they don't have 10, 15-year veterans running around out there performing these pickup arrests, performing these stops, and really honing in on these tactics with them and teaching them Supreme Court case, teaching them the law, and teaching them what they should be doing to make sure that they don't get shot in their face while they're at work. NYPD News Handle is putting out dangerous, very dangerous tactics. And that leads me to believe that one, that whoever's running that account has no idea about police work. And two, whatever's happening in the police academy needs to change immediately. So this is probably going to be one of the most important conversations of your career if you're currently in the NYPD, because I believe that you guys, and that we all believe that you guys are not being trained properly, and we believe that you're being set up for huge failures where it could possibly cost you your life, and so to the officers in the 7-5, I would take you guys on my team any day. I think that you guys did a great job. We're going to pick you apart. We're like armchair quarterbacks, and we're going to sit there like Monday morning quarterbacks, not to make fun of you, but just to teach you what we think should have happened and for you to improve and get better, right? We don't sit there and just because a touchdown got scored, we're not going to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, great job, guy. When you go out on the next guy, when you go out with the next team, you're going to score that touchdown again the same way. Absolutely not. We want to improve. We want to get better. So if you take it and you're butthurt about it, good. I don't care. Listen to what the hell we're telling you. Think about it. And then you could reach out. You could tell us whatever you feel. But I think this is important. I think it's important that we have these armchair quarterback Monday morning, Friday morning, Wednesday morning quarterback sessions, because obviously the police department's not having these hard conversations. And I don't think enough people understand it. I don't think enough people ever understood it in the police department. And that includes the bosses, and that includes Ron and Rob. I'm sorry, I listened to the show on Wednesday. Totally disagreed with the entire segment. I was like, again, we're just setting these kids up for failure based upon hearsay and third-party information, not actual case law, and being put into play. So, Marlon, what's up, brother?
Yes. Morning, guys. Morning, chat. It's been one hell of a week, and I definitely think the theme of this week has been tactics, considering all that we've seen this week. And maybe not just this week, because, week prior, we had another incident that was a little less intense, but still, we spoke about the how dangerous it was, and how untactical it was, So John's right. These conversations need to be had because certainly the department, as we talk about many times, the department keeps going through incidents and it doesn't seem like they're learning from it, because if they were, guys there'd be tons more training and we wouldn't have to have these discussions right now, you know? So I'm looking forward to it, and there's certainly a lot that we're going to talk about concerning these incidents. And that NYPD News Twitter account has been very suspect for a while now, and putting up stuff there that we've been like what are you doing, for a while now, and it certainly doesn't look like whoever's doing it over there has any sort of actual boots on the ground experience as a cop, or actually was an active cop, So yeah, let's get started.
Eric,
So
Eric, before we get into the video, could we start on Terry versus Ohio? Could we just go into the basis of that?
that's exactly what I wanted to jump into. Perfect. So I just want to say, I heard Rob and Ron, and we had Ron had talked about how we have a mass text thread amongst the Finest Unfiltered family. And a lot of times there's debates, obviously, because we have numerous content. We discuss and we talk about perspective. And many of us have similar perspectives, and sometimes we have different perspectives about different things. So I do think that Ron and Rob brought up great points, but I do believe that the entire picture is not being painted perfectly. And I'm not saying I'm giving it to you perfect, but I believe that I have developed a systematic approach with my cops throughout being an anti-crime sergeant and a special operations lieutenant. The majority of my career, this was what I did. It was my life's work. I became a nerd at studying Supreme Court cases because that is the knowledge that you need to be supportive, to be competent and confident in getting illegal firearms off the street, and to keep yourself and your cops safe, because the power through the knowledge. So let's talk about the case that Ron and Rob had spoke about, which we'll put the video on before. I believe there's a lot of different Supreme Court cases that highlight the stop and the interaction. But first, when we talk about Terry versus Ohio, that's a very important case. That case came out in 1968. And so what's important about that is the legal justification for a frisk. And I think sometimes a frisk is mistaken for a search. What is a frisk? In layman's terms, it's just a limited pat down of an area to check for a weapon. It's that simple. Now, the court recognizes that a cop does not have to see the bulge or an outline of a weapon to keep themselves safe. So that's where I disagree with Rob. And I love Rob. I think he's super intelligent, was an amazing leader, and is an amazing man. And so glad he's part of the Finest Unfiltered family. But that's the part where I do disagree. The court recognizes that a bulge could be a factor in searching or frisking. Now let's first talk about frisking, which is Terry versus Ohio, right? Frisking for a potential weapon. And the court recognizes that you may not see an outline or a bulge. And it's not necessarily about that particular person. This is not based on scientific evidence. It's very simple. It comes down to two things. One, you need a legal justification, a lawful stop. That stop could be based on reasonable suspicion, and that stop could be probable cause, or that stop could be a traffic infraction. So it has to be a lawful stop. Coupled with that lawful stop, there has to be reasonable circumstances, that's very simple, which is based on common sense standards, that the cops, the police officers, are in a dangerous situation. So what are those factors? Part of Terry versus Ohio could be something that could be dangerous. So it outlines 4 different categories. So for one, Rob is correct. If there is a bulge or an outline of a weapon, that would be cause for an immediate frisk. And if you then feel a weapon, it would be cause for a search to retrieve that weapon. Obviously, because this is just based on common sense. Second to that would be what's called contextual clues, meaning the time of day, the time of night, meaning the type of violence that's going on in that area. Is it a violent area? Are those type of crimes being committed? So contextual clues. Then you also have past history. So that's just something we don't know based on the video. Is did the police officers conducting that stop, did they have knowledge of those 3 subjects on the moped? Because if they had knowledge that they were involved in prior violent incidents, maybe an armed with a weapon or a robbery, that would be also cause. Then here's the other thing where people get confused: furtive movements. What are furtive movements? Maybe someone is patting their pocket. They're trying to conceal something on their side by putting their body in a particular way. Blading, which is something we saw. So there are 4 categories. That's your bulge, which is your outline of a weapon. Contextual clues, time of day, time of night, what's going on in your area. That's why it's important to be knowledgeable as a police officer, right? Past history. Do you have past knowledge of your particular subjects? And then, of course, your furtive movements. And this is all part of Terry versus Ohio. And again, I want to reiterate that the court recognizes that if a cop was to wait for the outline or the bulge of a weapon, unfortunately, cops would lose their lives. So that could be a factor. But you don't need actual specific on the person. What you need is to outline the circumstances. Could those circumstances in that brief moment be a safety and dangerous to the officers on scene enough for them to do a frisk?
100%. So Terry versus Ohio, 1968 ruling, but it rules on a stop from 1963. Cleveland detective Martin McFadden, he observes John Terry and 2 other men repeatedly walking back and forth in front of a jewelry store. So he believes that the jewelry store is about to be set up for a robbery. He approaches the men, he identifies himself, and guess what he does? He asks them for their name, and he conducts a pat-down of their outer clothing, discovering a pistol on Terry and 1 other person. So that's the stop. That's the stop. That's it. I'm a police officer. I know that there's robberies going on in my area, or maybe there's not. But I am aware, based upon my knowledge and experience, of how people act when they're about to commit a robbery. I observe the clothing. I observe the time of day. I discern their actions. My job as a police officer is to what? Know my neighborhood and know what? Know what stands out to me that does not fit that mold, right? I don't know that guy. I drive down this block every day. I've never seen these 3 men before in my life. Wow, they look very nervous. Oh, wow. And then when I start to approach them, they get even more nervous. There's no bulge into play in Terry versus Ohio. You do not need a bulge to frisk someone. A frisk is much different than a search. A frisk is a pat-down of areas where you could conceal a weapon. So it's basically anywhere where you could conceal a weapon. You can pat your hands or run your hand along the body to ensure that everything's fine and you're not going to get shot in your face or stabbed in your neck that day. A search is digging in someone's pockets looking for something. So the point we're bringing Terry and versus Ohio about this one stop is, if you're not at reasonable suspicion when you observe 3 males on an unregistered scooter wearing clothing consistent with committing robberies in the height of the summer, wearing hoodies, they're telling you they have no ID. They're being evasive in their questioning. They're being evasive in their movements. If you're not at reasonable suspicion and you do not believe you have enough reasonable suspicion to pat someone down at that point, you should really think about getting a different career, because you are playing Russian roulette. You should rethink your career. Because I'm sorry that, I'm going to say what I said again. I said that when I tweeted about it, I said they did a good job. Kudos to them for getting the gun, but the tactics were horrendous. And I'm sticking with that because the tactics were absolutely horrendous. If that perpetrator in the video we're about to show, If he wanted to do harm to you at any point during that whole stop and encounter, he could have done harm to all of the cops on the scene, and they were unprepared and they were unready and they were not properly trained. Their hearts were in the right place. Their heads were in the right place, but New York City and the NYPD failed them. Because I'll tell you right now, if I would have went out on my crime team and I would have conducted a stop like that and anyone would have seen that video, it would have been the last day I would have been in plain clothes. It would have been the last day I would have been doing stops, and I would have got my ass chewed about it. And I worked in the 123, bro, when there was about 400,000 less people in there. You know, so I don't know what game people think we're playing out here, what you guys think you're playing out here, but it's not all good in the hood. It's not. There are people out there that have very nefarious intentions, especially when they're taking guns. That kid did not want to do harm to any of you. If he did, he had every single opportunity to do it. So anyone saying that this was a good job or great police work, you have no idea what you're talking about. I'm sorry. You don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah. You see, this is the importance of you young guys getting your head in the game and understanding, you know, and being focused on the job at hand, you know, and being focused means understanding the conditions that are out there and that you're going after, you know. And once you understand the conditions, you're you know, in your command, you'll understand how to apply the Terry versus Ohio to them, meaning that you know how to properly articulate that stop, right? I think part of the problem here is that I'm looking at it and wondering, like, what exactly do these guys actually know that what they're going after here? Because it seems to me that the priorities in that video are kind of off, you know. It seems to me like they're treating it as a just a simple VTL traffic stop, when the conditions in that area, you know, and throughout the city to a larger degree, tell us that you know, there's a lot of robberies and a lot of shootings that are where the scooter is being utilized, right? So I 100% agree with John that the tactics here are like very poor, and it kind of there's I'm looking at the video in particular, and there's one guy in particular who I'm like, you need to get your head in the game and stop being so lackadaisical, you know. And I think the problem here is that it's twofold. It's a lack of understanding of stops. And it's probably because this job and the city has drilled it into these young guys' heads that about stop and frisk, and made a lot of people think that you know, it's not legal, okay, or that the DA's policy is the actual constitutional law, and that's not the case, okay. You should be more concerned with what the Constitution says and what the law says than the DA trying to DP your case. And if you actually understand the law as it's set forth and your conditions in your command, and you execute it properly, then it doesn't matter what the DA did. Okay, it doesn't matter what they do. That your stop would be airtight, and you would have done your job. Okay. And the problem is we're getting that pushback on multiple levels. We're getting it from the department itself, and from the DAs, and from these politicians, and couple that with the poor training, and we get what you're seeing here. And again, one of the problems is we don't have veterans in the precincts to tell these guys you know, otherwise.
So I often talk about intrusive police work, which I think is the foundation and bedrock to policing. But in order to do effective intrusive police work, you have to understand case law. I think, unfortunately, most cops do not study case law. Now, I have to say, I'm proud of the cops that worked for me. They were awesome. And they took the time out, because this is something that I instilled in them, is that you have to read Supreme Court cases. If you never want to pick up that boring, dry patrol guide, I understand that. But if you had a choice between reading the patrol guide, which is mostly administrative procedures, and Supreme Court cases are what's going to keep you safe and keep you alive, because it's going to give you the competence It's going to give you the confidence to keep yourself and the people around you safe. And also, it's going to keep you confident and competent to combat Civilian Complaint Review Board, potential liability, potential civil liability, and attacks that you'll get after, in your after action review of an incident. So I think what's also the problem is a lot of times, and this is, I think, is what's happening, John, is whoever's pointing out these videos of the cops involved in these incidents, these scenarios, they're celebrating the outcome. The outcome is great, right? It's rah, rah, rah. But we're not actually looking at the particular steps that we're taking to get that outcome. They're celebrating the retrieval of an illegal firearm. Now, that's great. That's great if, God forbid, forget about God forbid. That's great if you're safe every time. But you're playing a very dangerous game here. It's almost like, if anyone's an enthusiast, I love playing blackjack. And when you play blackjack, it has to be a systematic approach, and you have to play the same way every time because it's the laws of probability. So, for instance, if you're playing blackjack, you're supposed to hit on 16, even though you may lose. What the book says is you hit on 16 every time because the laws of probability say that if you eventually will win. So if you sometimes hit and sometimes you don't, you may win sometimes, you may lose sometimes. And the same thing goes with tactics. You cannot lack in tactics. Sometimes you do it perfect and sometimes you don't. Because you, as I used to tell my cops, unfortunately, every day you come to work and you're doing anti-crime work and you're engaged in intrusive police work, especially looking for illegal firearms and dealing with violent predicate felons, it's the last day of your life. It's the last day of your life if you make mistakes. You have to be knowledgeable and understand case law. Now, I was a case law nerd. When I look at that particular incident, we're going to play the video. I don't just see one Supreme Court case. Terry versus Ohio is just one case. I see Terry versus Ohio. That's your justification for a frisk. Again, I said it's a two-pronged operation. One, you need a lawful stop, which could be a track infraction, could be reasonable suspicion, and of course, probable cause, which would be the apprehension and that's what arrest. That goes even further. Then you have the case of People versus DeBoer. People versus DeBoer outlines the levels of intrusion. Level 3 is reasonable suspicion, which when you have a level 3 reasonable suspicion, sometimes that alone will warrant a frisk, and sometimes you need to add Terry versus Ohio to it. Then you also have a case of Pennsylvania versus Mims. We have 3 operators on a scooter, and we have a right when someone is riding a motor vehicle, it's a motorized operated vehicle, for tactical advantage to take the occupants off or out of that vehicle. Pennsylvania versus Mims for your safety. Then there's also a case called Illinois versus Wardlow. When someone runs from a scene, you have a right to take off after them. Does flight equate to frisk and a stop? And in some cases, yes. In some cases, no. So that's why it's important to outline and understand the circumstances. And as Marlon said, which is why it's so important that cops know their area. Cops have to be trained. Cops have to be very knowledgeable in what is going on in their area and the surrounding areas also. What violence is going on? Who are these perpetrators? What gangs occupy this area? What crimes have been committed? So cops have to be super knowledgeable. And then also, there's another case which I think is very important. And this is where cops, unfortunately, are not taught properly. And I think because it's just so difficult and the nuance is, I would hear, you can never search for drugs. That is the biggest lie. There is a case called Minnesota versus Dickerson. So if you're watching this right now, please take a look at some of these cases that we're mentioning. In Minnesota versus Dickerson, what it outlines is that if a police officer can articulate reasonable suspicion, along with Terry versus Ohio, that there's circumstances that make it dangerous, that potentially the perpetrators are armed and dangerous. And if there is a frisk for a weapon, and based on that officer's knowledge, he feels that location and knows, you have to have the knowledge, oh, this is vials of crack, this is vials of coke, you can then search and take that out, and the Supreme Court case would hold that up. You can't say, oh, I think it might be drugs. Then you can't search. But if you're confident, because you've dealt in it, maybe you worked in narcotics, it's your experience, and you knew 100% confident, you know, those are vials of crack or vials of coke, you can then retrieve them. So there's so many different Supreme Court cases. And my message to the cops, you have to read Supreme Court case. This is the bread and butter that's going to keep you safe, keep you knowledgeable, safe physically on the streets, and it's going to keep you safe from civil liability and also safe from the Civilian Complaint Review Board. So even though I was under attack and under fire from the Civilian Complaint Review Board, this is why I wanted to take all my cases to trial. And when I did, one case I was found not guilty, and one case was a reduced penalty because of knowledge. So knowledge is power. Please don't take this as a moment to knock you. Take it as a teaching moment. I do see some holes in the tactics in a particular stop that we speak about. And ultimately, I would tell my cops there were many times where they would celebrate the outcome of a gun. And I said, hey, let's not celebrate. Look at some of these factors that happen here. How could things have gone bad? So use this as a chance to make you better.
Yeah, so let's get into the video, right? So I just want to paint the picture for you, because when you're a cop, you shouldn't be sitting there with a checklist going, okay, we have this, check. We have that, check. We have that, check. Oh, okay, now I can patch you, sir. No, it's not what we're doing. So I'm going to put you in the scenario. You're in the 75th precinct. You observe 3 males on a scooter, unregistered. What do you know? You know that throughout the city, and more than likely in the confines of the 7-5 and the surrounding precinct, there are numerous patterns going on through the city of young black males on mopeds, unregistered mopeds. And what are they using? They're using the mopeds to kill people, to shoot at them, to do drive-bys, and to rob people. So right based upon that right alone, not only do you have probable cause to make a stop and detain all of these people, you also have reasonable suspicion this is a felony car stop. This is a felony car stop, and you're at reasonable suspicion to pat them all down because you suspect that there is a chance that they may be armed, knowing the manner that they're moving in. So we open up the video with this on an August night with the male wearing a hoodie, the third party on a scooter, on a vehicle that's being used. The vehicle's unregistered. You more than likely, if you're a good cop, could articulate that there's a great chance that this vehicle is also stolen. And I would probably beg that it is. If there was if this was actually vouchered as investigatory and there was any type of work being put in to find the owner of that vehicle, I would more than guarantee that scooter is stolen. So that's one. The 3 of them have no helmets. They're evasive in their questioning, and they say they have no ID. Do they really have no ID, or are they just being evasive? Again, there's many ways to skin a cat. We could just get off of the Supreme Court case, because right here, what I have is 3 males who all have violations and are all eligible for summonses at this point, and every single one of them right now, you have them at probable cause to place in handcuffs, detain, bring them back to the station house, search incident to a lawful arrest, and you could not only frisk them, you could run through their pockets and see whatever else they have on, and you could do the summons back at the house. There's nothing that says you have to summons them there. And remember, we summons in lieu of arrest. Now, if for some reason you say, I don't want to go that route. I don't know why you don't want to go that route, but if you don't want to, you have all of the Supreme Court case to back you up. Now, I'm just going to start with the opening segment of this video, because if you're paying attention, again, like we've been saying, now, mind you, this video is highly edited to favor the cops, to favor what happened here. The opening of the video, it tells you everything you need to know right here. This is a felony car stop. Nobody should have been laxed. These gentlemen should have had their hands up, been placed against something, or had their hands up where everybody could see them and being frisked, or at least immediately handcuffed. Because in the first 3 sentences, the cop tells you everything you need to know. You ready? I'm just going to play the first 3 sentences for you. Ready? Minute 13 video, highly edited. And this is what NYPD News decides to put out. So don't blame us for critiquing it. Blame them for putting it out, but I actually give kudos to them because I think this needs to be discussed. This highlights, I don't think that there were holes in the stop. I don't think that there were holes in the tactic. I think that there was a wide open everything. Listen to the first 3 words this guy has to say.
Y'all didn't hear the sirens, bro? Just go on the sidewalk. What's the problem?
Y'all didn't hear the sirens, bro? What does that mean? They were trying to pull them over. And the 3 kids on the scooter were what? Coming up with what the hell they were going to do. Why? because the third one in the back has a firearm on him, and he's like, yo, shit, bro, go. Right then and there, you're at a felony car stop, my friends. Whether they decided to not pull over or not, you're already at a felony car stop. I mean, unregistered, unlicensed moped, GLA, more than likely conducting robberies in the area or about to do a drive-by shooting on something. If you can't articulate that, again, I hear people in the chat, you never worked in an A house, bro. You never worked in the 7.5 and blah, blah, blah. All right, bro. Well, guess what? I worked with plenty of people that worked in the 7.5 and the 7.3, and they kept it on their cup case their whole career, and they were morons. And they had no idea how to police the streets in New York, and they were lucky that they made it home every night. And I don't give a shit where you work. These are the tactics that should be deployed, whether you're in Central Park, whether you're in the 7.3, whether you're in the 123, whether you're in the 111. It doesn't matter. You should be proficient at your job and know where you are. Where you work is not a badge of honor, my friend. It's what you do where you are. It's what you know and what you pass on to others. Yeah, bro, I worked in the 7.3 vault. Nobody cares, dude. Nobody cares. I'm sure, and anyone that doesn't want to engage in debate and doesn't want to say and pick holes apart in what we're saying and wear your 7.5 or your 7.3 collar brass as a badge of honor. I mean, I got nothing to say to you.
John,
you're the dude I described.
I got to jump in for a second. I'm sorry, Marlon, but I love that you just mentioned that, because when I would see cops, and I worked in heavy commands, and I agree with you, and I would see them with different collar brass in their cuff case, and I would say, what is that, for street credit? I mean, who gives a shit that you worked in the 4.7? What did you do there? Did you work in the 4.7 or you drove around the 4.7? You did the TS at the 4.7, which is a telephone switchboard? I don't care. What did you do there? And let's be mindful. People want to joke about where you worked. In most cases, cops don't get a choice of where they work. It's what do they do at that particular command. And I know I see some people here making jokes about my collars. Almost every collar that I have as a police officer was self-initiated, a pickup, and a felony collar, while simultaneously I was serving the Marines and passed the sergeant's test. So what did you do? My question, what did you do? Marlon, go ahead, bro. John, I'm sorry, but I think that is absolutely right. Street cred. You got in your cuff case. I mean, to me, that shows a lack of insecurity. It's almost like you're peacocking. Why do you have to show a command? Let's see what you can do. And people will know that you're a good cop.
No, yeah, I hated that. I honestly, I would get that all the time when I was a cop. I'm like, first of all, I didn't know anyone on the job. I got sent to every command that I ever went to. What am I gonna do? What am I supposed to do? I can't call daddy and be like, could you get me out of here? It is what it is. And I had this one interaction with a kid from the 7.5. He's like, bro, I work in the 7.5. I was like, okay. I was like, I'll drop you with a slap. What's your point? Like, what's your point? Like, you're tough because you work in the 7.5. I'm like, if I reach out my hand right now and smack you across the face, you're gonna get knocked out. What does that make me tougher than you? Like, does it make you, And it's like the whole thing annoys me because it means nothing. We're talking about defending your life. What it means is when you're in the 7.5 and the 7.3, you should be paid more money. I'll totally agree with that. You should get battle pay. You guys are out there doing God's work. You're in the shit of it. But when you're there in the shit of it and you're hiding and ducking from everything, and there are plenty of people that do that in those heavy commands as well, you're useless as well. You shouldn't get battle pay. The guys that are out there doing the job, these guys that we're critiquing are out here doing the job. These are the guys, when I call 911, I want to show up. Just because they're young, just because they made mistakes, doesn't mean anything to me. We're sitting here, we're talking about it because we believe it's dangerous. We believe this is the precedent across the board. And we believe these guys are doing very dangerous work every night and putting themselves in harm's way. And we want them to do it properly. It's the only reason we're doing this. It's the only reason we're doing the show today. We have 15 other topics we could talk about, but it has to be spoken about. This has to be spoken about. Marlon, I'm sorry, but you heard it right in the beginning of the video. You didn't hear the sirens? You're not raised up. You're not raised up here. I'm scared for my life right here. The minute I turned this video on, I was scared. I was scared for these cops. Petrified.
Yeah. There's a comment on the chat that says this show has lost the plot. And I'm like, really? Do you really think so? This weekend is the Super Bowl of policing in New York City. Okay. We have Juve on Sunday, and then you have the West Indies Day Parade on Monday. And if you have any sort of knowledge about those, you know it's going to be a violent weekend. Okay, so when you tell us this show has lost the plot, really, should we not discuss this? Should we not talk about tactics when where we have a violent weekend approaching, and this job is you know, they're posting up a video where there's poor tactics in there as like a success, you know? So I don't understand.
Forget they just shot each other, bro. Forget they just shot one of their own too.
Yeah.
Let's forget about that.
Yeah. But John,
Yeah, but it wasn't the cops' fault, John. You don't understand. It was Albany's fault. Just listen to the press conference.
Yeah. You know, John brings up a great point that I didn't even consider when I saw that video. The cops clearly, you know, they told them to stop before, or they were probably following them for a while with the lights flashing, trying to pull them over. You know, and yet, even in that video, we see that tactics aren't at that point. Your tactics should have been on point. You should have been. There's no doubt about it. You know, when you consider that their tactics should have been a lot more aggressive than what we saw in that video. And considering it, we're talking about the 7.5 here. Okay, the same people who will tell us who walk around with the collar brass and then tell us, okay, we shouldn't criticize these guys, are the same cops who are going to tell you it's a 7.5. It's one of the most dangerous precincts in the city. Yeah, sorry about that. If you guys are hearing somebody drove past with loud music. So yeah, I think this
8 o'clock in the morning, Marlon. They're already driving loud music.
Bro, around here, you get that 4 o'clock in the morning. They drive around blasting music. Yeah. So again, this video needs to be talked about because we can't be afraid to call out bad tactics, because if you're in a precinct, at least in the old days when we had the guys with time on who were in crime, they saw something that you were doing wrong, they would tell you that, bro, you don't do that, you know, that's dangerous, don't, you know. And that's one of the problems we keep talking about, that there's no experience in the command, and we can't treat these cops like you can't treat them like babies, you know. This is a serious job you're doing where your life is on the line every day. So if I would rather that the cop be angry at me than the cop end up, you know, dead. You know, which one's better here? The cop, because eventually that cop's gonna realize, holy shit, they were right. This was terrible tactics, and I'm glad that somebody was there to tell me that I needed to sharpen up my skills. You know? But let's get going to the video, because there's a lot in that video that you need to really pay attention to and really think, could this have been done better?
Before we get on the video, just real quick, I just something I think that has been missed in all of this. I don't know if the academy still trains, and I don't know if the police department still trains at what a felony car stop is, but I believe that this is a felony car stop. I believe that if they were in a car, they would have got taken out at gunpoint. They would have had their hands on the vehicle, and they would have been immediately frisked. It doesn't change because they're on a scooter. Do you guys agree that this is a felony car stop?
Before we get into the video, hands down, I agree. That's why, you know, Rob and Ron, if you're listening, that's why I didn't get too far engaged in the conversation in the threads. There's just too much to discuss, and I figured it'd be great for the show. This is why I think there were such great points, but we have to look at the entire picture, and that's why I said it's important to understand case law. In the case of Pennsylvania versus Mims, you have the right to get someone off their vehicle or out of their vehicle for a better advantage. So absolutely, this is a felony car stop. Immediately, you want to get these guys off that vehicle, off that motorized operation, whatever they're using, get them off, and then get yourself in a tactical position to have the tactical advantage. Create angles and create a position and create the illusion. Obviously, sometimes you just can't, but you have to create an illusion by the angles and the way you position yourself that the subjects, the persons of interest, stopped, feel that they can't leave and get to a point where you could see all their hands, and not get to a point where they could have the jump and leverage on you. So absolutely, this is a felony car stop. Now, I just want to preface this also by saying that I think these cops are awesome, especially right now with what's going on, how most cops are meek, timid, and docile. If you're watching this, I think that you guys are outliers. The self-initiation, the fact that you're taking self-initiation in the 7-5 precinct at night with 3 potential armed perpetrators, putting yourself in very vulnerable position, and then have the stamina to apprehend this perpetrator and get the illegal firearm is awesome. So we're not knocking you saying, hey, you did a bad job. What we're saying is you deserve better. This is my point. The cops deserve better. You deserve the best training so that you could do this time and time again and get yourself home safe. I saw a lot of tactical errors. It's the same thing. I had the best cops. These cops were fantastic. And I didn't put them on my teams after interviews because they were amazing. I put them on my teams because they had the potential. And I had to teach them tactics. And I say we, the cops that I had groomed, we would teach tactics to the new guys. It's so important. You have to position yourself. It has to be systematic in a position and create the illusion that these perps or persons of interest or subject or whoever you have stopped feel that they cannot leave and get to a point to retrieve a weapon that could be used against you. So the way I saw them position themselves, it looked like almost a standoff. You have to create angles. You have to create flanks and position yourself at a point that you get a tactical advantage. So immediately, based on that statement, that they didn't stop, to me, leads to believe that if they didn't create that stop at that point, there was potential for a chase, or maybe there was a slight chase even before that. But one thing we have, they're trying to evade the police officers. They don't have helmets on. Their behavior is immediately evasive, the time of day, the time of night. So a lot of people say, well, do you know what's going on in that area? Well, everyone here in the chat is saying the 7-5 is the most dangerous precinct. So based on that, I think that's enough knowledge, the past history of the 7-5 precinct, the time of day, time of night. We've had in the city, we've had shootings where occupants of scooters have shot at an off-duty customs enforcement agent. Numerous shootings throughout the city. Now, I don't know the exact patterns for the 7-5 precinct right now, but based on the movement, based on the knowledge, based on the demeanor of those police officers, they're aware. They know what's going on clearly. So absolutely, this is a felony stop, brother, without a doubt. The only difference, I think sometimes people are blindsided the fact that it's not a car. Because if this was a car, let's get away from the nomenclature. If this was a car, we would see them taken out at gunpoint because they were trying to evade the police. It's no different here.
Yeah, 100% it's a felony car stop. But I'm gonna say this: that if they were in a vehicle, they wouldn't have pulled them out the vehicle, even though we would have. Okay, they wouldn't have, because in this instance they weren't aggressive to begin with. Okay, so I don't think they would have pulled them out of the vehicle. And the other thing is that once I'm trying to pull you over and you refuse to stop, okay, especially considering we have multiple patterns of robberies, of shootings, of you name it, okay, there's been a lot from scooters. Okay, now I'm sure, I don't know the exact patterns in the 7-5, but I'm more than willing to bet that the squad has at least a couple of cases with guys on a scooter. So once you're trying to flee from me, I finally managed to pull you over here. You're all going to the station house. Okay, you're all going. I'm already at PC. You're gonna be issued a summons at the station house after you get debriefed. Okay, so I mean, we're gonna go, as we watch the video, we're gonna go through the stop, but I mean, it can't get any easier than that for these guys. And that's why I'm going to be even harder than Ron and Rob and Eric and John. And I'm going to say they just happen to get lucky and not have to get shot at or manage to recover a firearm from here. But I don't see any skill involved here, from all intents and purposes, this looks like rookies that literally just got out the academy and are told to, they're doing a VTL stop, and they just happen to have caught the guy afterwards, and yeah, they got a gun out of it. But I don't see any skill here. And listen, there's some people in the chat who are going to say, okay, you're being too hard on these guys, and you're because you're penalizing being a cop. You're kind of denigrating being a cop. No, I'm not. My point here is that that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, you're there to be a cop, right? Right? You're there to protect the neighborhoods and to arrest the bad guys and to prevent shootings and robberies from happening. So you're doing your job. So I'm not going to tell them they did a good job for actually doing what they're supposed to do. Okay, because if you don't want to do that, you shouldn't be a cop. I'm going to say that their tactics are poor, very, very poor, and that the job really has to look at itself right now and do better, because these guys could have easily gotten hurt.
Well, and I just want to say, I don't think that you are penalizing them at all. And I think that we need to be hard on them. As I said before, I do believe they're outliers. I believe that their heart's in the right place and they want to do the job. And I think they have the potential, but they need the tools. And that comes from training. They need to be trained. They need to know. They may not be aware. You have to constantly read Supreme Court cases to make you sharp, to have the confidence, to have the competence to be confident, right? Competence equals confidence. And also they need training on how to tactically position themselves. And we lost that because the veterans are gone. I'm gone. John's gone. You're gone. Sal's gone. Rob's gone. Ron's gone. We lost the veteran base that teaches amongst the police department on how to get involved. I think you're right. I think they were kind of meek as far as getting them off the bike. There's a lot of tactical. They didn't position themselves. I thought it was kind of like a standoff. They position themselves in like a Mexican standoff. I think you need to position yourself with angles and create the illusion that they can't leave and that you have the tactical advantage. Sometimes, even on a stop, you're outnumbered. And I would teach my guys that you have to position yourself and create. And I think Ron said this, great point, by the way. Ron said this on the executive perspective, is you have to position yourself and triangulate to give the illusion that they're in a tactical disadvantage. But these are things that are taught, and they're taught over time. These skills take years to develop. And that's why I say I think these guys were great, because I would love to put them on a team that I had and mold them and teach them, because clearly they have the potential, they have the desire to do it, but no one's trained them. And that's why we're not penalizing. We want this to be a teaching moment to make you better. I say the cops deserve better. They deserve the best training. They deserve to have veteran cops out there to teach them, because every time you're involved in intrusive police work, that's what this is. If you do something wrong and you make errors, it could be the last day of your life. Even if you do everything perfect, it could still be the last day of your life. This is a dangerous game that we're playing. It's not a game. This is you're playing with your life. So, Marlon, you said everything right. I don't think that you should feel that's penalizing at all. This is necessary, and it's a conversation they don't get, because the NYPD wants to try to put out feel-good videos to try to deflect from what's really going on with the leadership, and instead of having real conversations. This is a real conversation.
Absolutely, 100%. And so, Ron, I'm gonna just tell you why I disagreed with your whole segment, because you guys are arguing about what happens after the stop, and again, what we're saying here is you already were at probable cause, and all of them should have been immediately frisked and handcuffed. Every single one of them. And you guys are arguing about, after we took him off the scooter, after we did that. Yeah, 100% there's a frisk there. I'm not even arguing with that. That's case law. I'm saying that we could circumvent all of this with the probable cause you have there. And if you're not moving like this in the most dangerous precinct in New York City, or one of the most dangerous precincts in New York City, you're doing yourself and your partners a disservice. If you're not moving like that, I don't care this, it might just be a summons. Okay, then it's just a summons. Okay. Don't summons people without ID. Bring them back to the station house, or get ID on the scene if you could. I don't care. Move tactically. That's what I'm saying. And that's why I disagree. And I also disagree. And I don't remember if you said this in the show or if you just said this in the text, where you said, if you know of a citywide pattern, that's not enough to stop someone. That's completely wrong. It's 100% wrong. I'll just give you one perfect example. I knew of a citywide pattern where kids were driving around with baseball bats, beating the crap out of people, and they were driving. I don't remember the car, but let's say it was a silver Toyota Camry. Here comes 2 o'clock in the morning into Borough Park, a silver Toyota Camry filled with 3 males, Italian descent, looked like the guys. Guess what? Pulled them over as a result of it. Did I use probable cause to pull them over? Yeah, it had a busted taillight. I did. I used that. But that's not really why I pulled them over. That was just my excuse on why I pulled them. I could have stopped them based on the fact that I knew it was a citywide pattern. And guess what? When I stopped them and I called the house and I got that flyer for that citywide pattern, guess what happened? It was the plate of the car that they were driving around in. So I absolutely could stop somebody based upon knowing a citywide pattern. As a matter of fact, if you're on the job and you don't know the patterns in your command, you're a loser. If you don't know the patterns going around in the city, do better. Like, that's what I'm going to say right now. You should, every cop that's walking on New York City streets should know every pattern in their command. They should know the crime trends that are happening. Are you a professional, or are you just here occupying space and wasting around? You know, and so I totally disagreed with that. And that's why I'm saying I disagree with it, because I think we're doing a disservice. What should have happened is these individuals should have been taken off the scooter one by one and frisked. And immediately, if they did that, they would have been cuffed up immediately. I mean, that's my whole point. And that's why I disagree with the segment. We're talking semantics, like they're out there we're running through a checklist, when you're out here in really, your life isn't. This is one of the most dangerous scenarios that people will ever be in, that these cops will ever be in. Well, they're probably doing this 2 or 3, 4 times a night. So I'm not going to say that they're not going to be in that situation again. But for the average person, nobody's been, this is as close to death as you are right here. You're walking the line. And again, if these kids wanted to, they had every opportunity to do anything they wanted. And it was a complete failure. And that's why I'm sticking with what I said. They did a great job. Are we criticizing them? Yes, absolutely. Read Theodore Roosevelt's Doer of Deeds poem, right? You're the doer of deeds. We're the critics. It's not the critic who counts. It's not. Totally agree with that statement. You're out there. You're in the fray. Totally get it. Understand it. Tactics were horrendous. Horrendous. And we're going to get into it. Anything else before I play?
If I may, John, even if you think you can't use a citywide pattern, let's just remember here, the 7-5 is on the border with Queens. You have about 4 Queens commands that border the 7-5, okay? And the Rockaways is not that far off. So, I mean, there's enough there for you to work with. And again, why cops should be aware of not just what's going on in their commands, but what's going on in the neighboring commands. And we spoke about this in a prior episode about the poor job the NYPD does about intel sharing. And again, that is why it's very the job has to do a better job of doing that. Now, we share intel between FIOs and squad, but how often does that information actually trickle down to the patrol guys? Okay, and that is a major problem. You should be able to go to any cop on the street right now and ask him what are the conditions in his command, what are the conditions going on in the neighboring commands. Do they have anything major, any major patterns going on? And I'm willing to bet you that 90% of the cops you go to and you ask this question would look at you like what are you talking about? And that is a major problem.
Well, to your point, that's why when I would selectively appoint and pick cops and handpick them to my teams, I would always conduct interviews, because sometimes there's cops that mostly when you're moving around a precinct, the cops on patrol, you might know them on a surface level. And I found that sometimes when I would interview cops that people had that weren't on their radar, because people always believe when there's and a lot of times there are precincts that do operate that way. They put out a flyer that they're looking for cops in anti-crime, or now it's public safety, whatever unit. And in many cases, those cops are already chosen, but they put it out there because they have to. But I have to be honest, I never did it that way. I actually put out a flyer and actually handpicked cops through interviews, because sometimes I found there's a cop in PSA 7. His name starts with an M. I won't give out his name, but he was a cop that was on no one's radar. They really didn't know who he was, and he was kind of quirky. So they kind of misunderstood him. And I did an interview, and man, I was blown away. He was working a sector on patrol, and he knew everything. He knew every pattern. He knew the detectives that had the case. He said he even spoke to them and did follow-up. He's now working at PSA 7 a long time, and what a hell of a cop. Awesome cop. So you'd be surprised. There are some cops out there that are very knowledgeable and take pride in knowing what's going on in their command, and some don't. And they just need the right leadership. That's why everything's leadership, to actually identify that and put them on a team where they belong, or put them in a position where they could exploit their strengths. But we have to get to know people, and we have to, and utilize their abilities. Right? I always say you need to know your limitations and your capabilities. And we need good leadership to identify that and teach them. Get cops training. I always hated the fact, before we get into the video, John, you and I spoke about this often. I hate the fact that training was like the secret squirrel society. Why is it that someone in admin that is never going to utilize this? You find out they had some awesome training. It was like some 4 or 5 day training, like that they're never going to use. Why don't we give it to the cops that actually need it, that it could save their lives? But instead, they hold it to their chest and hide it. Give training to everyone. Give it to everyone. Train, train, train. The goal should be, and especially this, some people are asking, how do you know if you're a good leader? Your goal should be that the people that you lead eventually become better than you. If they're eventually better than you, you did your job, because they're now utilizing all your strengths. And then they take that and develop their own style and add to it what they learned and become better than you. That's the goal.
Yeah, if I could add one quick thing to what Eric says, that's so true. Because I'll tell you something. Like, I never felt like fully like I was that kind of cop that I wanted to be until after I'd finished being an FIO, because the access to first training and certain databases and intel is what I never had when I was a cop on patrol, and even a cop in conditions or in the the set team or the SNU team, and that is a huge problem, and I think that we can't talk enough about how bad that is, and that cops, you as a cop should be able to understand how to use a lot of the databases that we have to if you're not getting that intel yourself, how to get into those systems and get the intel yourself from the data that's in the system. And this is something that guys don't understand until either they get up there to special teams, like really up there in special teams. A lot of times it's not even crime, or when they make boss. And that's a detriment to the precincts and patrol cops.
Yeah, no, it's not a game. Either you're a professional or you're just wasting space collecting a check. I'm sorry, it's just not. So let's get into the video. Someone said waiting for this video is like waiting to get graded. All right, we're gonna start it over. We're gonna start it over from the beginning. We're gonna start it over from the beginning. Here we go. Three perps, 0 helmet on, evading the police, unregistered moped. Here we go.
Y'all didn't hear the sirens, bro? Just go on the sidewalk. It's a problem. You got 3 people.
So before we even start, he tells all of them to get off the bike immediately. He doesn't know anything. He's not observing anything, and he's more concerned with getting the moped on the sidewalk. So if this kid was wanted for murder, you're dead. If this kid wanted to get you, he got you. Terrible. What do you care about that bike being on the side? Why are you putting yourself at a tactical disadvantage? A huge tactical disadvantage. What do you guys think about this right here?
See, the impetus is not to get in trouble. Okay, got to get that scooter out of the street, don't want to get in trouble.
A stolen scooter you're worried about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't tell that. I thought the same thing. Like, really, that's what we're worried about? I can care less if your bike ends up in the middle of the street, gets ran over. I care about your safety. That's what I care about. Get off the bike and get yourself into a tactical position. So, what is tactics? Tactics is planning for the worst. That's ultimately what tactics is. I know everybody always use the word tactics, but does everybody really know what tactics is? That's all it is. Just planning for the worst. You got to put the subjects in a predicament where you have the leverage and the advantage. But to make them comfortable to worry about that bike, seriously? Right now at this point, you think the bike might be stolen. Why are we worried about the bike? Put yourself in a position where you give the illusory effect that they can't leave and they can't get the jump and leverage on you. Where are the hands? Watch the hands. Forget about the bike and put yourselves in a tactical position. Get them up on the wall. Get them in a position where they're cornered, where they can't leave, and where you can see their hands. And particularly a spot where it's well lit. So the only thing I see right now is it's well lit. That's about it.
So huge fail right off the bat. Let's go further.
On your bike, bro.
Oh, my fault.
No helmets, nothing.
Wendy's. My fault. Come to eat, boss. Nah, you right.
You have ID on your boss?
Nah, I don't got ID. I got
What's going now? Now look at the positioning. One guy's behind the bike. He's asking them for ID. Look at the other two, right? Two out in the front, running distraction. Look at the guy in the back. Should there be this much distance between these cops and these perps right now?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Okay.
Well, absolutely not. First of all, you have to get yourself into a position. I used to teach my cops. It's called feathering, right? You have to get yourself in a position close to the subjects where you could touch them. You want to get your hand near their arm or somewhere. Maybe even at this point, if you're not ready to frisk, you haven't got yourself into a position tactically where you can frisk yet, but you have to get yourself into position in arm's distance where you could actually touch them so you can monitor what's going on and also feel where they are. And that's called feathering until you get to the point. But now what I see is like a Mexican standoff. You know, they're kind of like just standing facing each other, you know, or something like you would see in the movie Outsiders. We're not here to stand. You have to position yourself. Someone needs to get behind those guys and flank them, especially the fact that the cop is standing behind the bike. You've already you created way too much distance between yourself and those subjects. This is where the tactics start to really fail.
Yeah, 100%, dude. And this is why, but this is the breakdown of not like when you're on a scooter or they're in a car, you take one off at a time or one out at a time while the other one's watching. This is why telling them to everyone get out of the car or everyone get off the scooter and go there puts you at a huge tactical disadvantage right off the bat, right? Because there's only two of them right here, right? So like you're at a disadvantage, right? You're at a huge disadvantage that you created. They're afraid. They would have listened to you in that moment. They're like, oh crap, I got a gun in I'm like, one at a time. You on the back, come here. You stay on the vehicle and your partner's watching while you're frisking. I mean, this is that. Sorry, Marlon.
No. I was gonna ask. I'm curious if there was three cops initially, or if the third guy that came up was a post. But yeah. The fact that there's a scooter, you know, in front of the cop is a major problem. You know, it's a major tactical disadvantage. You know, and again, we're saying that they were already trying to pull them over, so you already knew these guys were trying to evade you. Okay, and you should have been raised up immediately. You know, and the fact that there's so much even after that there's so much tactical mistakes here is again like were their heads in the game here. Like I'm particularly puzzled by how even after that these guys are you know, kind of lackadaisical on the stop. And additionally, there should have been as soon as the moped tried to evade them, they should have gotten on the radio and asked for one additional, you know, non-emergency to get another car there, because again, you should have been raised up initially, even before you actually managed to pull them over, because they were trying to evade. But for those of you watching, keep your eyes on the guy in all black, okay, which you should have been focused on to begin with, okay, because look at all their clothing, and the guy in the back is dressed like a ninja, okay. So keep an eye on him.
Marlon, I awesome points, by the way, and sorry if we interrupted you before, but this is just like this has been my life's passion. I'm so excited to talk about it. Now, don't be mistaken. We see this kid here with the pink pants. A lot of people think, well, he's wearing sweatpants, so there's no chance he has a firearm. Let me tell you, one of my best crime guys that I've had, his name starts with an R. I won't say his name, but he knows what I'm talking about. And we chased a perpetrator one time through a building who had a past history, and he had sweatpants on, and he had a huge gun in his sweatpants. It was tied to the string inside, and we had such a hard time. He was fighting, just trying to get it out of his pants. We almost had to cut his pants off as we're fighting him. So don't be illusioned by sweatpants. I've seen the most creative things. I've seen a perpetrator right across from PSA 7, right across the street from Police Service Area 7, where we apprehended a perp that had a loaded .45 caliber firearm strapped to his chest, and it was hooked to a trouser belt. He had the trouser belt tied around his chest, and as crazy as it sounds, the trouser belt went through the trigger guard. So I've seen people carry guns in the most amazing facets, and I agree with John. The best thing would be to take them off one by one, get them in a position, and you need to tactically position yourself where you have the advantage. That's ultimately what tactics are, is having the advantage and having them also now their positioning where they're starting to create more distance to the bike and themselves is a problem, because if they retrieve a firearm, especially right now, since they haven't triangulated and got themselves into a better position, this could turn ugly. It can. Thank God it turned out good. And that's why we have the opportunity to critique it, but it could be ugly. It could be.
100%. I just want to clear up clear blatant misinformation in the chat right now, because Ron and Silver Spoon, nothing I said about knowing a citywide pattern did I ever use the words that you have probable cause. I never said that once, not one time. I said that gives you reasonable suspicion. I'll go back to Terry versus Ohio when there was no pattern. He just, based upon their movements and their actions, the police officer knew that those actions were consistent with their robbery. So if I know a pattern and I see people that fit the description of the pattern acting in a weird manner, like trying to evade me or anything else, that puts me at reasonable suspicion. That puts me at reasonable suspicion, and I'm there. On this scenario right here, and even in that scenario, I told you I had probable cause for the stop, which was a broken taillight. Here you have probable cause for the stop, unregistered motor vehicle, being operated by 3 males, which is illegal. This is a 2-passenger vehicle, being operated with no helmets on when they're required to wear helmets. There's multiple factions here that you have PC that you could ultimately put them in handcuffs, frisk and search incident to a lawful arrest, bring them back to the station house and do a further investigation to identify who they stole the bike from. Oh, and then figure out, oh, by the way, and they have a firearm on them. And then run and debrief all of them and see who they just robbed or who they were about to rob or who they were about to shoot and what else and what that gun's tied to. That's what I said. I never said probable cause ever. I never said that one time. So Silver Spoon, you could keep saying that we're spreading misinformation and pretending that you don't know how to do your job and getting paid for it, or you could listen to what was telling you and learn a little bit, and so let's go further into this video. So
wait, John,
yeah,
take a look on the right. Is that cop? Look where his hands are. Yeah,
in his pockets.
Yeah,
in his pockets. Yeah. So I mean, or where else are they? Where do you see it all the time? Up here, right?
Yeah.
Where's this? They're holding the vest. I'm like, what's this?
Yeah.
What's this?
Yeah.
And then even on the motion of asking for them ID, let me see your ID. Like, who are you asking? You want all 3 of them going in their pocket at one time? Who are you asking? You doing like this? Yo, let me see ID, bro. Yo, let me see ID. This is what you're doing? This is safe? You want all three of them? No. You, pink pants. Let me see your ID. Other two, let me see your hands. All right. Frisk down, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I actually hated that move, by the way. I would see a lot of the
should have
cops.
never been here.
yeah.
I hate that move, by the way. I would see a lot of cops and they hold on to and they grasp their vest. And I showed my cops that when you do that, all I have to do is just pin one hand to your chest. You now made it easier for me. And now I have a second hand to start punching you. I hate that. Your hand should be at the ready in a conversation bladed, but not holding your vest. To me, I don't know if that's a cool guy look. I didn't do that. I don't know what that is. If you're doing that, get out of that habit, because not only that, I can pin your hand and wrist lock you. So you put yourself in a bad position. Fortunately, most of the persons of interest and subjects that we deal with don't know how to fight. They just, they have guns in the street. But if you get someone that's trained, it's a bad spot.
Yeah. Yeah. So cops do that to vent their vest sometimes when it's really hot. But I get doing that when you're not doing anything, when you're standing around on a foot post and your t-shirt's starting to stick to your chest and you want to vent a little bit. But you're taking enforcement action here. Okay. You haven't established control of the scene yet. You just got out the car. What are you doing that for? And the other thing I had here, my other thing here is that when you stop guys, let's say there's only 2 cops here, right? And you're at a disadvantage. You have 3 guys. Again, you got to establish control of the scene, and you got to put them in a comfortable stance so that they can't have a tactical advantage over you. And right here we see one guy, his hands up, the other guy's hands, his hands look like almost in a fighting stance, and we don't even know what's going on with the guy in the guy dressed as a ninja. And that's because, again, these 2 in the front are clearly trying to distract you, and the guy in the back is trying to hide and use them as cover. And why is that? Well, we'll see as we go further on why he needs to obscure your vision of him.
Yeah, and again, you're on a foot post and you're just standing there, fine. You're on a foot post, you got your hands in your pocket, fine. You got 3 perps stopped in front of you who just committed infraction and just evaded you, who just attempted to evade you on a scooter. You got a big problem. And, Ron's saying we don't know that there's a pattern in the 7.5 from mopeds. I do. I don't even need to see it right now. I guarantee you there's multiple patterns in here, not only in the 7.5, but throughout Brooklyn North and throughout the entire city, where we know that there was over 60 robbery patterns from mopeds recently. Plus, there were multiple shootings from mopeds this month alone in Brooklyn North. Like, I'm not citing no misinformation or not being factual. I'm being totally. I know this, and I live in Florida, and I'm a retired cop. I'm like, come on. This is a joke here. This is a joke defending this. Like, these kids are going to get killed out here, and or they're going to wind up shooting each other, which they just did the other day. And we're going to defend it. Like, I'm not defending this. This is. I'm sorry. I'm going to stick to what I'm saying. Horrendous with 17 seconds in an edited video. Everything we've seen so far is horrible. I'm sorry.
Just being like a God forbid you're.
So are there 3 officers here or are there 2?
Go back a little bit. There's 2. There's 3, because the video we're looking at is the 3rd guy. So there's 1, the guy on the right, and
There's 3 cops
in like a triangle.
Yeah. There's a guy right here. Okay, right there. So look, they got them boxed into the scooter, but this kid right here, huge bulge right here. Instead of being on him, the kid's got his hands on his phone right now. Instead of being on him, what is he doing? He's shining his light where the gun is. Let's see how long this lasts. 1, 2, 3, 4. So he shines the light where the gun is, basically saying, letting the perp know that he knows where the gun is. That's what he did. He let the perp know, I know where your gun is. Didn't move in on him. Didn't signal to his partners, right? When I did anti-crime, we always had signals to each other. Yo, we used to call each other Frankie. So everybody thought our names were all Frankie. Frankie. Yo, Frankie. Frankie, 54 over here if we thought that they were perp. Yo, check this out over here, bro. We got good stuff over here. Gun. Oh, look at that. Anything. We all had signals and we knew what we were going to signal to each other. Frankie, do me a favor. Black shirt right here. You know, Frankie, let you know, come by me, and there's no communication here whatsoever. You're just shining the light at the gun. I'm sorry. Again, this wasn't a time to shine your light. This was a time to pull your gun out and drop him with his hands up, or grab his hands and throw him on the fence. But now we don't know if the other two have guns also.
Well, that's why, for one, again, that's why I say these cops deserve better. They deserve better. They deserve training. There's no one there to train them, because clearly, I talk about anti-crime, same thing. When I was with my teams, we would always say, he's got nothing. If we said, he's got nothing, that means he had something, to try to just diffuse the situation, give us that 1 second to get some leverage. And one thing, you don't want to telegraph. That's telegraphing. You don't want to let the perp know, hey, look, everybody, he's got it. Of course he's going to take off and run. There's going to be an immediate response. You want to break that OODA loop. We talked about the OODA loop. Rob and Ron spoke about this on Wednesday. What is OODA? Observe, orient, decide, act. That's something that goes through your head the entire day. You look at something, you're about to have a drink, you observe it, you orient, you decide, you act. If something goes on an eighth of a second, you decide to have a drink. Which is why you don't want to telegraph, because right now these subjects are standing there and they're observing what's going on. They're orienting themselves. They're making decisions and making a determination when to act. So you have to break that OODA loop. You don't want to let, excuse me, you don't want to let the subjects know that they have a firearm. Maybe you identify it, but at this point, you have to have communication. How you have that communication and what you say, that's why it's important. If you're on patrol, you have to have these conversations with the people you work with. What are we going to say if we do find a gun? What are some of the terminology we're going to use, or how we're going to move in? It's easier for teams because it's something they do constantly. But for these guys, clearly just no training. They deserve better. They deserve training. But again, do not telegraph. You don't let them know, hey, look, you got a gun. His next decision is going to be to run or take it out and shoot at you. You just gave him two decisions, right? Or to just get on the floor and say, you got me. But at this point, I think you already know. Now, if anyone wants to argue, can we please go back to this? John, thank you very much. You made a great point. I don't think I need to look at crime statistics right now. We know what's going on in the city. But everyone's arguing, the 7.5 is so bad. The 7.5 this. You wear the 7.5 collar brass for street credit. And then we're going to debate whether there's crime going on in that area or not that articulates a frisk. Really? Is it that bad or it's not? Which one is it? Can we pick one, please? Because I can tell you right now, without even looking at the crime stats, I would put my money that there's a 911 call in close proximity within the past 24 to 48 hours of a man with a gun. I would put my money that there is some violence going on in that particular area, probably burglaries, robberies, and probably people on mopeds that are committing crimes. To me, based on the officer stop, I would assume that they're not just looking for someone with a traffic violation of not wearing their helmet. This is a pre-contextual legal justification for a stop that may lead to a further crime. Guess what that's called? Broken windows, intrusive police work.
Again, and again, I'm going to go back and say it again. Horrendous. Look at this. Where are you ever trained in the academy to stand at someone with both of your hands occupied? And not only do you have both your hands occupied, you have your dominant right foot with your gun stepped towards them. Is this the proper interview stance? I don't know. To me, this looks horrendous. Horrendous. Here's my gun. Here's my gun right here. Here's my gun. No, you stand if there's going to be times when your hands are occupied, right? What do? You keep your dominant leg back. Why? So that you could protect your gun. I'm not backing off on it. Anyone saying that this is a good job, I'm sorry, you're doing a disservice to not only these officers, to every officer behind them, because this is horrible. It's horrendous. These tactics are horrendous. They did a good job. Their heart's in the right place. They're stopping the right people. Tactically, what is happening at the police academy? Why would the NYPD think that this is a good video to put out? Why? Oh, why? Because most people don't know what they're looking at. Sorry, we do.
Yeah, something I just thought of again here. There was another video about a month ago of cops stopping a perp, and I think it was they were stopping him. I think he was he was in the midst of trying to steal a vehicle, and they stopped him, and he took off on them. And that video was played on NYPD News uh, Twitter, because they used the drone to follow the guy. But again, that's another example of very poor tactics, and here it is, the job is lauding that. But yeah, this, there's so much tactical problems here. I want to point out that in a case like this, you have a vehicle there. Okay, not only should you have called for additional, okay, get an additional unit there, right? So you can stand back and take their names, which, as we discussed earlier, it shouldn't have even, these guys should have been in cuffs and brought back to the station house, right? But anyway, we have a vehicle there which you can use to your tactical advantage, okay? And kind of put these guys in a kind of box them in there in a situation where they can't, they're at a tactical disadvantage, and it's not as easy as it would be to run on you, okay? And I think this all goes back to these young guys are afraid to be aggressive, and afraid to, and also afraid to do their actual jobs, because it's been so pounded into their heads that what we can't do instead of what we can do. Okay, and I also think that's my theory is that might be part of the reason why the NYPD keeps showing these videos, because they want to show cops being as less hands-on as possible while still managing to get a firearm, and that's just not the way to go about it.
I gotta laugh. Shout out to QC Beast. This is hysterical. I said, I would bet that there was a 911 call for a man with a gun in the past 24 hours. QCB says it was probably in the past 24 minutes. So yeah, I mean, listen, we're bragging, right? I'm working at 7-5. It's so violent. There's so much going on there, but then we're going to argue whether there's crime in that area that articulates a frisk. Which one is it? Seriously. Shout out, by the way, Hassan. Thank you, brother. Coffee and donuts. He left us $19.99. And of course, G2 training from George Misford. Check out the key if you want to get promoted and you want to educate yourself on leadership. $19.99 coffee and donuts. Says, preach, fellas. Yeah, thank you, George. We appreciate it. Also, check out George. He's looking great, physically fit. So he's training. He's got a great training regimen. Check him out, G2 training. So we appreciate it. I think there's a great point you make, Vaughn. Absolutely. Hands down. There's just so many factors here. But here's the scary part. You made a great point. Should you get on the radio and ask for help? Yeah. But right now, after seeing that friendly fire shooting, it's kind of scary. Do you want more cops there right now? I don't know. Because now you have to pray that the cops that respond are trained, that they have the judgment and discipline to not hurt you too. So this is a very tough predicament. I wouldn't say they're wrong. I think that's a personal choice. If you want to have more there or not, I think more is better to get into a tactical advantage, especially when we're talking about people with firearms. But it's just a scary time right now. It's a scary time if you want more cops there, because we're getting the cops. The question I have now is sometimes you do ask for help and you want cops to get there and be engaged to help you, not just stand there and have a PBA meeting on the side. On the side. And unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens. We want cops to respond and actively be engaged to help. That doesn't mean that you're actually talking with the persons or the subjects and interrupt the flow of what's going on with the contact officers that are there, but be there engaged. And I say this about the NYPD, and it's fortunate that we're losing it. The NYPD, because we are so good at dealing with crowds, NYPD was the best at moving people without touching them. We always had that ability, and we're losing that. And you can see that in this video. It's unfortunate. No one's teaching them this.
Well, to that point, Eric, I'll say if they knew what conditions they were looking for, they would have called for an additional. Because think of it, you have the 3 guys here. They were evasive to begin with, and And here we have that officer taking their names there. Even if the cops that show up are just potted plants and they just stand there and do nothing, I at least want another guy there so that I can take their names, and not I can be at a tactical advantage, And I question whether these guys even went on the radio prior to the foot pursuit.
Yeah. And Silver Spoon, I really hope that you're not on the job, dude. I really hope you're not. He said, so because there's a robbery pattern on mopeds, that's a justified reason to stop anyone on a moped? What portion of the vehicle's unregistered and there's 3 males on a 2-person vehicle with no helmets on? It's 3 violations and reasons probable cause to stop the vehicle. Which portion of that did you miss? Which portion of that didn't you understand? Well, I'm not. This isn't a registered vehicle that's operating legally. If it was, we're not having this conversation, right? Like, I really hope. Like, this is the mentality of cops today. Oh, you can't do that to my sergeant. But you're getting criticized on this job 8-way to Sundays. If you're the biggest loser on this job and all you do is show up to 911 calls and either shit can reports or take them, you're getting criticized for every single job you do. If you're worried about being criticized, this is the wrong profession for you, my friend. It's the wrong profession for you. Nobody said that. Stop putting words in people's mouths here.
John, stop. We have to be nice to each other now. This is a nice police department now. We're nice to each other. We hug each other. We can't criticize because that's mean.
That's mean. And then when cops get hurt, it's a tragedy. And it's like, well, most of these things that I witnessed were avoidable. Completely avoidable, and we're doing nothing to avoid it because we got to be nice to each other. We can't criticize each other. Like, no, sorry. The best people I ever worked for and with criticize the hell out of me every day, and I learned from them every single day. And most people are like, that guy's an idiot, that guy's an ass. Yeah, well, that guy cares. That guy cared about my safety. That guy cared about my career. That guy cared that I made it home to my family.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. Think about when we were brand new and Dennis, Myra, and Fitzgibbon used to break our balls. They did it because they cared. They taught us every day. Here's how you do, and they broke your balls with it because they cared. They could have sat back and did nothing. It would have been easy for them, but they cared, and that's why they taught us. And you need that. You need legitimate critique. That's what saves your life. If we're worried about being nice, if we're so nice to these guys and we never teach them, you know what? They'll end up dead. God forbid. And then everybody talk about how great they are because they love you in death. They don't love you in life. That's why here we actually love you in life because we want you to do better. We want you to be able to do this time and time again safely. So Marlon, to your point, I want to say, and actually showed up in the comments here also, you're 100% right. This is a feel-good video because they got a gun. It's wrapped like a pretty bow. None of the perps got injured. None of the cops got injured. This is all pretty, right? Patrick Donahue says, Dennis Myra, true street cop. True street cop. Absolutely. Was awesome. You don't have those cops anymore. Where are they to teach these guys how to do anti-crime, how to do real police work, how to do self-initiated police work? I love it. You got Terry versus Ohio here, People versus DeBoer. You have Illinois versus Warlow, Graham versus Connor. We have Minnesota versus Dickerson. There's so many different Supreme Court cases right here that you could break down. But tactics have to go along with it. And that's even written in Pennsylvania versus Mims. The reason to take people out of a vehicle is because it could give you a tactical advantage. That's the purpose. It's how you take them out. And John, you're 100% right. If we had a car on a felony car stop, we wouldn't take all 4 occupants out at the same time. Strategically, we used to make sure that everyone was standing by a different door and take them out one by one, right? You would take them out and bring them to the back one by one. You wouldn't take them all. And it's the same thing goes on a motorized moped. You're not going to take them all out on once and then put them lined up together and stand up next to them. I just think it's training. And Joel Ramirez said here earlier, they had a summons mindset. That may be so. And I would tell the cops also, you can't have the mindset, well, I'm just going to get a summons today, or maybe I'm going to get a call today, or I don't want to do anything today. Well, they go home, put a 28 in and go home because you don't know what that day will dictate. The persons of interest, they dictate where it's going to go. You don't. Once you engage in that stop and you do intrusive police work, what you think may be something minimal and just be a summons. Could be the last day of your life. Could be a shootout. So either go home or you have to be all in. That's it. That's the bottom line. Anybody wants to know what a 28 is? If you're outside NYPD or a police enthusiast, a 28 is just a form so that you can take some time off.
All right, so let's play this video. I'm going to play it from the beginning. We're at the 24-second mark. We're an hour and a half in. We never played the video. I see a lot of you are antsy in the chat. So we've been going an hour and a half on 24 seconds so far. So I'm going to play it from the beginning straight through, and then I'm going to come back to the 24-second mark. Right? We already said horrendous the first 24 seconds. Here we go. Beginning of video, start to finish.
Y'all didn't hear the sirens, bro? Just go on the sidewalk.
It's a problem. My shit, bro. Wait, what happened? I kicked my head back?
You got 3 people on your bike, bro.
Oh, my fault. I know.
No helmets, nothing.
Wendy's. My fault. Some to eat, boss. Nah, you right.
You have ID on your boss?
Nah, I don't got ID. I got shh. Nah. God forbid, you're. Okay. On the moped. I got kicked in my foot.
Stop! Stop!
No,
Just stop! Stop! Hold him. Let me grab it. Let me grab it. Stop! Just grab his hands.
okay. It was 1 mil stop.
1 mil stop. 1 mil stop. 1 mil stop. Go for Liberty.
I'm going to go back to the 24 seconds, and I'm going to start over again. So we're at the 24-second mark. But before, look at this. So we go to the 24-second mark here. All right, you ready?
On the moped. I got kicked in my foot.
So just real quick, takes off running, right? I'm never catching him, so shout out to you guys for catching him. But you left the other 2 perps. 2 cops going after 1 perp. Other 2 perps are gone. I don't know if 1 stays. I think he does. Now he's 2-on-1, and we don't know if the other 2 are armed. Right? So now they run. Shout out to you guys for catching up to him and getting him. I'm never getting him. I don't think any of us here are getting him. We're old and fat now, but so I get it. But the
Speak for
approach,
yourself.
but now you know he's running because he has a gun, right? You saw the gun in his pocket. You saw it now. Now you have probable cause. We're way past all this stuff now. Now, we've had probable cause in the beginning, and we could have eliminated all these targets, and we didn't. But then we were at reasonable suspicion for a frisk the entire time we were there, and we didn't. And even in the beginning, the entire time, and we didn't. And then now you're running. I mean, I don't know. At this point, my gun's out. My gun's out here, dude. I'm not playing anymore. Like, I'm not running up on somebody. I'm not seeing what his reaction is. I'm not gonna wrestle with someone and maybe he gets one of his hands free and shoots me. Look,
John, stop right there, please. Because this is the part that I want to discuss. Look at that shadow right now. That shadow is of the police officer. His firearm is not out, and his hand is out motioning for him to stop. We got a great comment here from Tom. This is the part that really infuriates me in the video. This part infuriates me the most. Even though I did say they didn't, these cops have potential, this part infuriates me. And this is where the emasculation of the job comes in and the concern about CCRB and civil liability. Tom says that cop did a Magneto Darth Vader hand stop to a guy with a gun. Yes, his gun should have been out and should have been get on the fucking ground. Get on the fucking ground. You know he has a gun, but I'm sorry to curse with our YouTube, but at this point I have to put emphasis on your gun should have been out because your partner is about to apprehend the suspect, make contact. He has a gun on him. You know that already. Your gun should be out. not your hand gesture. This isn't, this isn't Karen. Well, hey, put out your hand. Hey, stop, buddy. Get on the fucking ground now. Point your gun at him while your partner is about to take him down and make physical contact. This is the part that infuriated me the most. And you can see it right here in the shadow. So to that police officer, great job running after the perp. But please, God forbid this ever happens again. And don't worry about CCRB. If you do get a substantiated complaint for saying get on the fucking ground, guess what? Congratulations, own it, enjoy it, because your partner would be safe and so would you.
Yeah. For those of you watching, if I stop you and you're fleeing from me, more than likely my gun is coming out as I'm running after you. And I this is something you young guys, like, maybe it's experience, but I once chased a guy and like we got into the courtyard and he tripped and a gun flew out in front of him. And I look back on it now, I think, damn, I wasn't even ready for that. He could have blasted me, But I also went to active shooter training. And after that, I never looked at corners the same way. So if I'm chasing you and I lose track of you around that corner, the first thing I'm thinking is as soon as I turn that corner, am I going to, those corners are dangerous, because you don't have sight of him as he's gone around that corner and you don't know what's awaiting you. And the fact that this officer is using his hand to stop the guy is absurd. And especially considering the guy behind him, I believe, is the guy who had the flashlight on him to begin with. So why isn't his firearm out? Maybe the cop who was taking notes doesn't know what he has, but certainly the cop behind him knew what he has, So I don't get it, I don't get it. I think it's these guys are just afraid of doing their job, And I think that's a sad state of affairs and for these young guys.
Well, that's what they're trained to be. They're trained to be afraid of the job and not fear for their life. That, like I when you're a young kid, you're 23, you're 27, you don't think you're gonna die, bro. You don't think that nobody's gonna kill. Nobody can kill me. Nobody's gonna get me. You know what I mean? This got to be beaten into your head how dangerous the work that you're doing is. So I think the first time I ever even started to think about like what the hell we were doing, I was doing a warrant like literally like 3 days after my daughter was born, maybe about a week after my first daughter was born. And I was like, wow, this is a pretty crazy job, Like what would happen if something happened and I didn't, and I left my wife alone. Before that, they're thinking about this. You're doing 20 or 30 of these. It's the job's responsibility. The leadership, if there is any left, which I don't think there is, because they're a bunch of drunken idiots. All right, let me not even get into that. But like, it's their job. It's their job to instill these tactics in you, and it's not being instilled into people, and people aren't realizing what's happening and what circumstances are at play. Very, very dangerous right here. Again, hand in the pocket. I mean, look at this. What is he doing? Is he putting his phone away? Is he grabbing his phone? Is he going to pull out a gun and blast you? Your partner is all by himself. More than likely, those two ran. So you're sitting there with honestly, like if you guys weren't young and fast, you know what you guys were going to have in this scenario? Nothing. You were going to have a stolen moped that you found over there. Probably had the 3 guys that were wanted in one of your patterns. You probably find a gun later on somewhere, and all 3 perps are in the wind because you did nothing to control them. You did nothing to avoid it, and the NYPD celebrating it. And someone in the chat's giving you kudos, Marlon, about your comment that this is what the job wants. Showing soft-ass police work, terrible, horrific tactics, and they still get a gun. Because like we've been saying, guns are falling out of people's pockets in New York City because everybody's carrying them. Shootings ain't down, just reported shootings are. When I'm talking about shootings, I'm talking about not people just letting guns off in the air. I'm talking about perps shooting at people. Just happens to be their aim sucks. And they haven't been that lucky this summer. That's all it is. And what we're seeing is everything's on fire right now. Everything. New York City is a much more dangerous place to be a cop today than it was when me, Eric, and Marlon were cops.
I just want to say shout out to Ron Layson and Silver Spoon. Great conversation. So Silver Spoon is saying in the chat here that they have to do what the job tells them to do, and the job is actually telling them the wrong thing to do. And Ron Layson said, Silver Spoon, John and Eric from the podcast are telling you how to articulate what you are doing or should be doing, not just do it because I said so. And that's real leadership. It's unfortunate, but I think between Wednesday's episode and today, cops have learned more than they have learned their entire careers because they're getting zero training and zero leadership in the NYPD. Just tell them to do things, not tell them why, how, or trying to keep them safe. We actually care about you. We don't want you to die. We want you to live. And exactly that. John, I said that right towards the end of my career. I mean, guns were falling out of people's pockets as things started to get worse. And now it's even far worse than it was before. And you're absolutely right. They're young and they're fast. And because of their physicality and their agility and their ability, they were able to get this firearm. And thank God they're okay. But this could have turned this is ugly. You know what? Sometimes you have to listen to the guys who've done it before and use that wisdom to make you better. You guys have great physicality, you have ability, you have the agility, but you need the knowledge, you need the competence, you need the training. You deserve better. You deserve better training. And I hope this is utilized to keep you safe, to make you better. And please, if you're a cop watching this right now, you have to read Supreme Court cases till you're blue in the face. My cops were so good at it. They would cite it at CCRB interviews. They would cite it. I would watch on body camera. And as they were dealing with intrusive police work and encountering subjects on the street, they would be citing different Supreme Court cases. To that, I was so proud because that gave them the competence to be confident. And confidence coincide to keep you safe. So Ron Layson, thank you so much for the support. You know, exactly. We're trying to help you on how to articulate what to look for, how to think, how to operate, not just do something because we said so. So what the job is telling you right now is all they care about is the outcome. You get the gun, they'll put you on social media, they'll have a great feel-good video, but they don't care about all the steps that happen from A to B that could have gotten you killed. And to John, your point is absolutely right, brother. I never saw my mortality when I was young. When I was 23 years old, I got deployed to Iraq. And I'll never forget, before we went, we had to fill out our own packet, and you had to fill out your own funeral. And I filled out what I wanted and all this stuff. And I said, what the hell am I doing this for? I'm not going to die. I never realized it's a game that nobody wins. Everybody dies, right? It's a game that no one wins. And as you get older, you start to see your mortality. So you're 100% right. And that's why when you're young, you do things that are just stupid because you're not trained, and you do it with no fear because you don't see your own mortality. So we don't want you to be scared. We want you to do the job. We want you to do it with knowledge. So you're 100% right, John. When you're young, I never saw my own mortality. I didn't see it until I got older.
Yeah. So in the chat, Wall Street Willie says this is why these types of white men shouldn't patrol ethnic communities. And Willie, that is like, I don't know what you're talking about here, okay? Because this got nothing to do with race. It's about young cops not getting the training they need, and veterans not being in the precincts to tell these guys to give them pointers and to help improve their tactics. Now, keep in mind also, Willie, that at least one of those cops is not white. And that happens to be the same cop that we pointed out has his hands either in his pockets or down on his waist, but not in a tactical position. And that's the cop that during the stop, he was positioned just to the right of the officer taking their names. So again, what are we talking about here? Okay. Now, now you made me lose my train of thought. Yeah, come back to me. I had another comment about the stop.
No, but I mean, honestly, that's it. Like, I think that they're brave. I think that their heart's in the right place. The effort's there. They're going after the right people, right? I think it's targeted police work. But immediately after that stop, that's it. Like, I'm going to just say it one more time. The tactics are horrendous. I'm not saying it to beat you up, not saying it to pick on you. I can't believe that the NYPD is picking these videos out and just putting them out there like, oh yeah, look how great we did. It's like, no, that's a very scary day. And anybody that did any type of anti-crime work, that did all of these stops, that made pickup arrests and did it for the period of time when I did it and prior and after are going to say the same things that we're saying. They're going to say the same exact things. I mean, and it's scary that that's not being taught in the police academy, and it's scary that it's being promoted on the NYPD social media. And and then we can't sit here and tell you that the training's terrible, the qualifications are diminished, they don't train cops. We just did a video on Monday of cops shooting each other and talked about how bad the tactics are, and then I'm going to pretend just because the next video went well, because the ends justify the means? No. Sorry, no. This is why things are breaking down, is because there is no focus on these stops. There's no focus on these tactics. There's no focus on when you're going to these 911 jobs, and there's no focus clearly on conducting proactive police work based upon reasonable suspicion, based upon Supreme Court law. This isn't you're going on a 911 job. This is knowing what's going on in your command, knowing what's going on throughout in the city, knowing what you're looking for, observing it, and knowing what you got the minute you got it. The minute before I put my lights on to call that car, to pull that light over, you guys should have already been plotting what you guys were doing before you pulled it over. You already should have been calling for your other team members. There's 3 of them. They were obviously a public safety team. I'm sure you guys weren't the only call working that night. Call your other guys over. You guys should have signals to what you see and when you see it, and you have to do much better than this. 1 person at a time off of that moped, 1 person at a time out of that car. Control them, frisk them, know when you could frisk, know when you can search. And if you don't even want to get involved in that, use PC. When people don't have ID, you can't summons them on the scene. Place them in handcuffs, search incident to lawful arrest. You took them in for that broken taillight, or you took them in for that unregistered vehicle, or you took them in because they weren't wearing a helmet, or you took them in for anything. And we could avoid all this even topic about you're already there, bro. You got PC. That's it. You don't summons people on the street without ID. And you could do that in reverse, bro. There's nothing sitting there saying you can't start there and go backwards. All right, now I know the scene's not safe and I'm not getting shot. You know what? Let's get you ID at scene. I'll take you out of handcuffs now. Nobody says you can't do that. And anyone that tells you they can't do that, they're a moron. They don't know what they're talking about. So I'm not sitting there telling you to lie that you saw a bulge from 3 blocks away like a certain deputy mayor did. And I'm not saying there sitting and telling you to shoot people in the back like a certain chief of the department did. I'm sitting there and telling you, know your job and be great at it and be awesome at it. And when you don't know anybody on patrol and you don't know any of the chiefs, like I didn't, you know what you do? You leave no doubt by doing this police work while you're on patrol, while you're answering the jobs. You leave no doubt that you know more and you're a better cop than everybody they got doing the job that you want to do. And guess what? You might have to work a lot harder than those other guys to get there, but you'll get there.
Shout out to Silver Spoon, who's been engaged on this chat. Obviously, Silver Spoon does care. I'm not picking on you, but I got to push back on this comment. So Silver Spoon says when you're in plain clothes, you can police different.
Oh, is Eric freezing? Or is it
What's
me?
up, Mo?
No, I think it's you, dude. I hear Eric fine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So Silver Spoon says when you're in plain clothes, you can police different. I don't agree. I've done plain clothes almost my entire career. The tactics don't change whether you're in plain clothes or uniform. Maybe it changes us getting some leverage or advancement to make an observation on a potential subject or suspect. But when you're actually dealing with perpetrators or subjects and the stop has already been conducted, the tactics don't change whether you're in plain clothes or uniform. The tactics is exactly what John was just saying. You have to plot. Tactics is a plan. Tactics is preparing for the worst. Plan on how the stop is going to be conducted. What are those tactics? How they're utilized? What are things that are going to be said? Especially if you're working in a team environment. These are things that have to be drilled constantly. And yes, be the best at it. Go out there and do your job. And again, I would love to take those cops involved in that incident under my wing, because clearly they have the physicality, they have the ability, they have the agility, they have the desire to do the job. They just need to be molded. They need to be educated and taught by proper leadership and proper training. And clearly, they're not getting the training. So hopefully this podcast is a training tool to support you because, and I say this constantly, the boots on the ground with terrible leadership that's going on right now, with a corrupt administration, is still going out there doing their job. So hands down to you that you still want to make life better for New Yorkers. I want to make it better for you. You deserve better. You deserve training constantly. And yes, to what John said, same thing for me. I'm the first generation in my family to ever be in law enforcement. I didn't know anyone. I built my own reputation, my own career. I was promoted to special assignment based on my own record, not because of nepotism. And you could do that also. Did I have to work harder? Yes. So, John, you're right. But you know what? I did it because I love the cops and I love doing what we did in the community. And I was fortunate to have the best cops, hands down. Everyone that moved on to become sergeants, some of them are lieutenants, some of the detectives. These cops were the best because they trained. And we used to say this quite often. Readers are leaders and leaders are readers. You have to read constantly. Supreme Court case, educate yourself. Knowledge is power. Get out there. You have to read. Can't just get your information third person. And same goes for this podcast. The information that we provided today, look to the Supreme Court cases that I provided. Look to some of the tactics John spoke about. Look to some of the stuff Marlon spoke about, and look up stuff that backs it up. And you can say, you know what? These guys are giving correct information, or I agree with what they're saying, or I like to, look into it further. Rather than get your information third person, put your own fingers on it.
Vaughn, your mic's off.
Oh, sorry. That's our mute moment just for Hassan. Yeah, everything Eric said is spot on, and I'll add, you have to know what you're going after. And there are tools out there for you young guys to, if you're not getting that intel, for you to look it up yourself before you get out there. You should get in there before 10 minutes before you have roll call or you're getting out there. Jump on that computer, look at DOS Lite, I don't know if you have any new programs since I've been there, but you have DOS Lite and you have iCAD. You just do simple searches and see what's popping off, And something else I want to add, Craig CB, I see the Facebook comment here. It's kind of scrolled up, so I can't look at it anymore. But he said, as soon as those guys said they had no ID, they should have been in cuffs. I'm going to add, as soon as you pull them over, they should have been in handcuffs because they were already trying to evade you. And if you're aware of the conditions, you would have wanted to get into that scooter. Okay. So I'm taking you all back to the precinct. Okay. And the other thing is that chase, that foot pursuit, right? If you're pursuing a guy, don't follow him directly on the sidewalk. Okay. If I'm running off a guy, if I'm chasing a guy, what I like to do is get in the street and kind of use the vehicle, the row of parked cars, to my tactical advantage. If this guy has a firearm on him and he decides to shoot while he's running, I would rather be in the street as he's running on the sidewalk than to be running directly behind him on the sidewalk in case he starts blasting as he's running. And the last thing I want to say is that just going back to that moped, and we don't know what was in that moped. We don't even know if they managed to, if those perps that stayed back, if they didn't just hop on a moped and just drive away. And we don't know what else could have been in that moped because it could have bounced. So this is why they should have called for additional from the get-go. So that's all I have to say for this. Again, guys, know your conditions and that helps you understand what you're going after, and it'll give you the framework to apply Terry versus Ohio and all the other cases that Eric has mentioned.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. People are saying that there's police and then there's cops. Listen, I'll be the first one to say all three of those guys are cops. They're just young. They need to learn, and that's it. I'll say it again. If I had a crime team, those are the guys I want on there. I just think they need to do better. I think the job overall needs to do better because clearly it's video after video after video. They're posting them, touting them as great work, and the tactics are horrendous. The tactics here are horrendous. I'm not saying that to clip your wings. I'm saying that to you to get better. These guys could be the top of their game. They know what's going on. They're going after the right people. They just have to eliminate the danger of this job. Could you ever eliminate it totally? Absolutely not. But you could eliminate a lot of those bad situations that you put yourself in. By the way you move, by the way you talk, by the way you ask for things. And we outlined a lot of things. The way you stand, asking for one at a time, controlling each individual separately, asking for ID separately, frisking people, knowing that you could bring people in for a summons. I don't care what your sergeant says. I don't care what the desk officer says. I got it every single day when I was a cop and when I was a sergeant. They hated me. Why are we bringing this in? What is happening? We're doing police work. This is the job. We're bringing down those patterns. This is a Crime Stoppers video that comes out. This is from the 4-2. Hold on, let me say. This is a robbery pattern. New York City Police Department is asking for the public's assistance in identifying the 2 individuals in the attached media who are wanted in a connection with a robbery pattern that occurred in the confines of the 4-0, the 4-2, and the 4-3. Now, just because this pattern in 3 years is gone, you watching this video one time, you're going to know that this is how you're going to be trained from this moment on. The moment you watch this video and you're a sworn law enforcement officer, from this moment in time, this is how people that rob people in the middle of summer are dressed. This is how they move. Does that give you probable cause? Absolutely not. Does that even put you at reasonable suspicion right away? No. But this should make the hair on the back of your head stand up. This should bring you, what is this guy doing? And I'm going to watch and observe him. And even if it was using something as minute as jaywalking, which our progressive left took away from us in New York City, or littering, or doing something minor, now you make a stop based upon probable cause, upon an infraction, whether it's a minor infraction or a major infraction, but you should know what this individual is doing right off the bat. So here are these 2 individuals wanted in a robbery pattern. I mean, look at this. It's an August day. It's an August day. Mask up, hood up, and now we know, bang, what kind of car. Are we not going to be looking for this car when we're driving on patrol? I don't care if you're in Staten Island. You should be taking note of all this. Right? Knowledge is power. That's it. Bottom line. So we're not telling you, oh, now that every day because you've seen this video, but these are all factors. Now you see that car and the plates don't match or the plates don't make sense or they're on their cell phone. Guess what, bro? Now you got something and you better look into it. And then based upon all those factors, the time of day, the time of night, the location, based upon your knowledge, or if they look like they were possibly casing somebody, now you could be at reasonable suspicion. And the minute you're there, you should be frisking.
Yeah, there's been a lot of debate about hoodies and a lot of race baiting when it comes to hoodies. A lot of people I actually spoke to about this video, even before we did the podcast today, said, oh, you can't stop everybody with a hoodie. That is not what we're saying. What we're saying is you have to form, and there's something I would teach my cops. When you do police work, you have to form a baseline. What is your post supposed to look like? What would you envision it to look like? And if it doesn't fit that baseline, you should make observations. That doesn't mean you make an immediate stop. We're not going to stop every single person wearing a hoodie. Are there some people that wear hoodies in the summer just because maybe they're anemic and they're cold? Yeah. But if you go to a Yankee game, it's 95 degrees and everyone is there wearing T-shirts and they're sweating and there are 3 people wearing hoodies, that should draw your attention. Does that mean it's going to be an immediate stop? But no, we're talking about the time of day. What crime is going on there? What behaviors are indicative of their actions? Put all these things together and you have yourself a stew. These are the ingredients of a 2-pronged system to conduct potentially a stop under People versus DeBoer and Terry versus Ohio, which is a frisk. A lawful stop coupled with what are the conditions? Are there conditions for danger? If you see someone with a hoodie, that doesn't necessarily mean a stop. But if it doesn't fit the baseline, this doesn't fit the baseline. It's a summer day. It's warm. Most people are wearing T-shirts and hats. This person is in all black, which makes it even more hot on a hot day, completely covered. The hood is on. You should be making the observation. Also, the way their hand is in their pocket, the way they're walking, the movements, these are all behavioral indicators that potentially they're concealing a firearm or about to commit a violent crime. Reasonable suspicion is a level of suspicion under People versus the Boer, right? That's levels of intrusion. And then you also have Terry versus Ohio, which gives you the right to a frisk. It's all based on very simple common sense standards. What would a reasonable person believe? Would a reasonable person, that's all it is to be a police officer. It says it in the penal law. It's based on what a common sense person would believe. That's why you go through a psych. Would a reasonable person say this doesn't look right? If you think that if a police officer has an interaction with this person of interest and you believe that's racist, you have some problems. You have some issues. A reasonable person would say that doesn't look right. Something looks wrong here. If you never were a cop, you were just Joe Schmo walking on the street, you would say that doesn't look right. You probably would create some distance, say, I don't want to be near that person. Something is up. That's what a cop should be saying. And that's why it's the cop's job to use that shield to be intrusive. That's the difference between a cop and a security guard. We don't observe, report, and repeat. We engage.
To that point, I just want to add that prior that we need to do a better job of the sharing of information like this, and it just I don't think it can just come from the patrol sergeant. I think it should come down from the FIOs or maybe a squad guy. Come down at least once a week for these tours and let them know, hey, this is what we're looking for. We have this condition and so and so. 5 minutes. That's all it really takes for a roll call. To let these guys know what's going on out there, and it also helps that they'll know the. Now I don't know if they have plainclothes anymore in the precincts. I don't think they do. I think it's just some modified uniform. But these guys should come down and show their faces to the patrol guys, because a lot of times, like in special teams, you get you kind of get into a bubble up there, and you don't know the new rookies that are in the command. And this would be a great way of the new rookies learning the faces in special teams, and maybe getting to know them a little bit more, so they can possibly pick their brains when, and not just hear like the intel before they go out on patrol. But yeah, we got to do a better job of sharing, of information sharing, and getting these patrol guys into the frame, into the mindset of just knowing being aware of what's going on in the precinct, and being aware of who you're looking for, rather than just put up a Crime Stoppers poster at the desk.
Yeah, and again, I love the race baiting in the comments always. Oh, God forbid we talk about a guy wearing a hoodie. I don't care what color that person's hand is. I don't care if it's a black hand, if it's a white hand, if it's an olive skin hand. I don't care what shade of color that hand is, because that's the only thing I can make out. I don't know if that's a male or a woman. I know that it's August. It's 90 degrees out. They're wearing black sweatpants. They're wearing socks. They're wearing slippers. They're wearing a hoodie pulled all the way over their face, so they're covering their eyes, and they have a mask all the way up just so they can barely see. If you see this as a person, I don't care if you're a cop. You should get the hell away. If you're not a cop, as a matter of fact, you should get the hell away from this person. You should grab your kids and everyone on that block and say, let's get the hell out of here. Something's not right. Something's not right. This is not normal. Like Eric was talking about baseline. This isn't the baseline. It's not. It's not. If this doesn't raise your suspicion as a regular person on the street, you're out of your mind. If this doesn't raise your suspicion as a cop, leave. I'm telling you, you're playing Russian roulette every day, dude. You're playing Russian roulette every day. If you think this is a race thing, you're an idiot. Open your brain up. Open your mind up. Absolutely ridiculous. So that's the whole point in it. I know a little tempers flare here, but it's all out of love, because honestly, I think it's again, I'm just going to go into it. I think you guys are playing a very dangerous game. I think You're out there with people who have no business playing that game, and you're being led by people who, if they observed you playing that game in the stands, they don't even know what they're looking at to tell you what could have been done better or not. And you're also out there with the same type of people playing that game with you. And that's why we're seeing failure after failure, and everything I'm seeing coming out of this administration and the last 4 years. I'm going to say it again. Bill de Blasio's police department, Bill de Blasio's New York City, as much as I can't stand the guy, as ugly as he is, as much as of a communist as he is, the New York City was ran much better, and the police department was a much better, more tactically sound organization than it is today.
Silver Spoon says, do you have a legal reason to stop someone who's wearing a hoodie? So I'm not sure if that's a serious question or you're joking, but I'm going to pretend it's a serious question and answer it. I think we articulate and explain it. We're not saying that every person walking with a hoodie, but looking at that picture, what we're saying, a reasonable person would say that is suspicious. It's not a scientific. This doesn't have to be a scientific equation on whether we stop someone or not. I'm going to assume Silver Spoon is a cop. And what happens, unfortunately, I've talked about this numerous times. Sometimes we're actually more educated and smarter before we're cops. Because what happens is you go to the police academy and they inject you with this thing called the idiot chip. And they put this idiot chip in your head. Now, I'm not trying to insult you, Silver Spoon, but here's what happens. A normal, reasonable person would say, get off the X. What does that mean? Get away from the person walking on 95-degree weather, as John said, in all black, with a hoodie, covering their mask. They might go and do something crazy. Normal person would say, let's get away from that person. So forget about how they injected this stuff into your mind to be afraid of civil liability and CCRB, and think about how you thought before you were a cop. And think as a normal person, say, I need to get away from that person. So as a cop, the people that, how do you know that person should be stopped? Well, if people need to run away from that person, that's the person you need to go to. I used to sometimes use this as an analogy. I would tell my cops, you know what? When you're driving around, you ever drive around in a neighborhood or somewhere unfamiliar, you get lost. Before there was GPS and you had to look at a map or you had to ask questions. Would you ask that guy for questions? Would you ask that guy for directions? Would you stop and say, hey, buddy, can you tell me where to go? No. Right? Because he looks like a scary individual. Like something's wrong. That's the people that we engage. That's the people that we make observations to. They don't fit the baseline. Do we stop everyone with a hoodie? No. But based on that, the way that guy is dressed, the time of day, the weather conditions, the way he's casing cars, the way his movement, it's reason for a stop. That means Terry versus Ohio. It means People versus DeBoer. It means Graham versus Connor. That's why you have to know these cases. And then if you conduct a frisk or search and it turns out he has drugs on him, but because of your knowledge, you knew it was drugs, the search is good. That's called Minnesota versus Dickerson. And if you want to challenge me, please look up those Supreme Court cases. I'm always reading. If you find another Supreme Court case that I did not mention that supports it, mention it. Thank you.
Yeah, Eric S in the chat. I'm sorry, brother, but if you don't like this, you need to change the Constitution, okay? Because the law, the police have these powers, okay? So if you have a problem with it, then don't. You're gonna have to change the law, okay? You're gonna have to get rid of those case laws, okay? Now, what else was I gonna say? Yeah, I was gonna say something else, but yeah, let's go on to the other topic.
No. Everyone wants to cry about the police, and then when old women in walkers are getting shot in the head by stray bullets and getting murdered on the streets, they're like, "What the hell are the police doing? Where were the cops?" Oh, I don't know. Maybe you didn't want them, right? They don't have cops in the Constitution. The cops are part of slave patrols, like Eric Adams told us, right? Not in New York, buddy. Sorry, Eric Adams. Read your history, my friend. Read your history, because it didn't happen in New York. We didn't have slave patrols. The NYPD wasn't born out of slavery. Sorry. I know that's what you tell people. I know that's how you got yourself to be the position of the mayor, but it's just not the truth of the matter. It's not. It wasn't born from corruption. No, it wasn't. So I love the race baiting. I love how the race baiting continues. We're going to continue to pretend it's 1963 America and everybody hates black people. It's like, nah, bro, sorry, there's a crime problem in your neighborhood, there's a gang problem in your neighborhood, right? The same tactics that we deploy in black neighborhoods, we deploy in Hispanic neighborhoods, we deploy in Asian neighborhoods, white neighborhoods. Get over it. If there's a problem with a disproportionate amount of people committing crimes, then guess what? There's going to be a disproportionate amount of people getting arrested. There's going to be a disproportionate amount of people getting stopped. There's going to be a disproportionate amount of people in a gang database when they make up the gangs. Is Eric Adams? He's inviting the gangs to Gracie Mansions for Pete's Talk so they could all smoke blunts together and make fun of Kaz Daughtry. It's an absolute joke here, what I'm seeing. How many white gangs do you think he's going to invite? How many Asian gangs are going to be invited to Gracie Mansion? Let me tell you. Let me break it down for all you lefties. 0. Let me break it down for all of you soft Republicans. 0.
I just got to say that this title is awesome when I saw this, because you've been fed this narrative, and I say you, the average New Yorker, has been fed this narrative that crime is down, historic lows, shootings down. It's not a violent place. There's so many people riding the subway. Kaz Daughtry even went further to say that 1.8% of the crime is from the subway. Only 1.8%. But yet, the Bronx is on fire. I told you the other day, in the 4-7 precinct, there's a 50% spike in crime shootings. So the Bronx is on fire. We hear about shooting after shooting, and yet crime is down. I guess, do we not include the Bronx? Is there an exception when we do CompStat? Is Bronx not considered part of the city? Do we do a different breakdown? I'm sure we do. Look at that title. Adams to deploy 1,000 cops to the Bronx after shooting surge. How can there be a shooting surge? Crime is down. There's no guns out there.
We're at historic lows, Eric. What do you mean shooting surge?
Exactly.
Oh, there's the post back to that propaganda again. I guess Jesse didn't make up payment this month.
Misinformation. That's, and I'm sure there's going to be a puff piece that comes out after this to try to combat this. But yes, this is more indicative. Your eyes are not playing tricks on you. Rub your eyes. You're reading it. Yes, they have to deploy more cops in the Bronx because the Bronx is on fire. And it's funny, right? They're trying, we hear a lot of racist comments and some baiting towards this podcast. We're telling you that crime is not down. We need a better job out there. We need better trained police officers, and that the cops deserve better, and also the public deserves better. So I think we love black people more than this administration is telling you, because this administration is telling you everything's fine. And I can tell you right now, I think it's 92 or 93% of the Bronx is black and brown. So almost the entire borough is just being completely neglected. Exactly. That's right. You can't give out those numbers. So who really cares about black people? We do.
Yeah. Mind you, the Bronx just got a lot of rookies from the last class, so it got the overwhelming amount of rookies out of that class, and it wouldn't surprise.
Potted plants, you mean?
Well, yeah. If you're not training your rookies properly to be tactical, and they certainly don't know about the conditions around them, or getting tips from veterans, then I mean, it doesn't matter how much you send there. They're not, how much of an impact are they going to have in that area? But yeah, I would expect we're going to get a lot of propaganda next week, considering that this is Labor Day weekend, and historically this is tends to be a violent weekend. So I'm sure the Post is getting ready with those fluff pieces, and we're going to see a lot of drone pieces and a lot of Tish is so great pieces next week.
Yeah. And there's a lot of hate in the chat about the Pat Gordon interview yesterday. So just want to talk on that for a second. Sal Greco had Pat Gordon on. Check that interview out. I thought it was a good interview. Myself and Eric have a lot of people on. We had Zohran Mondani on. We don't beat anybody up. We let them talk. People are entitled to their opinions. Does that mean that all of us are co-opting, or we all agree with everything that Pat Gordon says? Or no. Absolutely not. There was tons of things on there that I was like, get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? And where he's downplayed a lot of stuff, particularly when we got to the aviation thing. You're going to read a lot more about that this weekend, and I don't think it was downplayed at all. I don't think what happened in aviation was downplayed at all. What Winston Fidon was downplayed at all. But I think that Pat Gordon downplayed it. And there's always going to be differing opinions, and there's going to be different thing. And hey, if he has Winston Faison come on, Winston's entitled to his opinion too, and he's entitled to defend himself. That's what we do here. We bring on the people, we have the conversations, we ask the questions. We don't torture people to get the answer that we want. They say what they want to say, and I got to say right now, I give a big shout out to Pat Gordon for coming on the podcast. I don't agree with everything he says, or most of the stuff he says. I don't agree with it at all. But I think when it comes to when we talk about the NYPD policy on criminal association, on the vaccine mandate, on hiring, on discipline, we all agree it's arbitrary and capricious. I mean, we're not, there's a lot of problems in the NYPD. We agree on that. Now, when we start getting into the minutia, we all disagree. Even us three here on the panel, everybody in the chat. We're humans. We're entitled to our opinions. Shout out to Pat Gordon for coming on.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad he came on. And Pat, if you listen to this, thank you for your appearance. I said that on X, but I'll say it publicly here. Thank you for your appearance. No, we don't attack anyone. I don't believe in doing that. Opposition meets opportunity. I say that quite often. We should have adult conversations, whether we agree or disagree. And maybe we can come to some compromise. Maybe we don't. But at least we'll have a better understanding of each other. And that disarms each other. And it really, we talk about de-escalation, the buzzword that we hear often from the left, people that have no idea about police work. I think that is de-escalation, that diffuses a lot and disarm people and diffuse conflict by having real conversation. Real conversation diffuses conflict. The NYPD needs to do that more often than having these surface level conversations at these community meetings. Have real conversations with people, get to know who they are, what they want, how they feel. And ultimately, the bottom line is this. I think we all agree at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We all want happiness. We want enough money to pay our bills, and we want good health. That's really what we all want. How we view the world is different. And unfortunately, some people are self-serving than others. And I think the bottom line is we're not going to beat anyone up, and anyone's invited on this podcast. One thing Pat said, which I liked, which is right. He's not taking anything personal, and we should not. Kaz Daughtry and John Shell, and something Sal highlighted on his show, I think he's dead on, is they have made this personal. Critique should not be personal. You should not be taking it personal. You should have more thick skin than that. And you can say, well, I agree with it, or I don't agree with it, and take it with a grain of salt. If you start to personalize it, that really highlights and really signifies your own insecurities. And that's what it comes down to. So I'm glad that Pat came on here. I appreciate some stuff he said about initiatives that were out there for my son to help. So Pat, thank you for that. But at the same time, we're not going to all have the same views. That's the beauty of it. Let's have these open conversations. That's how we diffuse real situations and diffuse conflict.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, Silver Spoon says in the chat that, I think he's being sarcastic, but he says, I really want to be proactive now. Maybe my video can be ridiculed on this show. And look, Silver Spoon, we're not ridiculing them. The thing is, right? These discussions need to be had because, that we say it all the time, that the veterans aren't there in the precincts anymore. Okay. So it doesn't matter. These critiques, cops should take these critiques to become better cops, because this is serious. This isn't like you're a mechanic and you happen to connect the wrong wire or something like that. This is a life or death job. Okay, where if you make a mistake, your family is going to be mourning you. Okay, so these critiques should be taken. You shouldn't internalize it. You should use it and become a better cop. And I think for you veterans who don't like this, well, then you should take it upon yourself to talk to these young guys yourself and help be the change that you know that you want of the job, you know, and there shouldn't be the siloing of different parts of a precinct, you know. And you know, I say I mentioned last episode that I saw a cop who was sitting down in Rockefeller Center with his back to the crowd, and I'm still thinking about it because I think to myself, maybe I should have gotten out of the car and told him, you know. But you know, I also think that, you know, because I don't have ID, you know, that retired ID, and you know, cops tend to be a little bit standoffish. I find a lot of cops tend to be standoffish when you just approach them out the blue these days. So, but these discussions need to be had, and just like Patrick Gordon coming on here, you know, we need to talk about these things to get a better product, get a better NYPD. And he showed a lot of courage to come up here in the face of all these criticisms that we've given him. And some of you guys may still not like it, but you got to remember here that Zoomers and millennials, it's going to be their department soon. Okay. The baby boomers are aging out. The youngest baby boomer, I believe, is like 60 years old. So that chief only has 2 or 3 years left. Okay. All right. And Gen X is getting up there themselves. Okay. This job, the majority of middle management on this job are going to be Zoomers and millennials soon. Okay. And there's going to be 1 or 2 chiefs there. So it's going to be their job soon. So we may not agree with everything Patrick Gordon has to say, but you can't deny the fact that Patrick Gordon is going to be one of the leaders of the job soon. He's a millennial. Okay. So, you know, we get a better product the more we discuss the problems. And in the case of what NYPD management should be doing is we take action on those problems. That's how we get to the NYPD that we deserve, you know?
100%. And Silver Spoon says, you 3 couldn't find a collar in a shirt factory today. Silver Spoon, we would run circles around you out there just like we did 3 years ago. We do it right this second. I mean, I'm in New York City often. I'm in Florida often. I don't know the laws and the rules and the regulations here, but I mean, I could collar somebody, especially when I'm in the city. I could collar 10, 15 people a day. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I see action after action. I don't see cops anywhere. I see drug deals right in front of my face. I see prostitution rampant. I mean, like, you see people robbing from CVS every time you walk in there. I mean, like, and nothing's being done about any of it. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And then a lot of people like, oh, you guys were scared to have Pat Gordon on here. Full disclosure, Pat Gordon reached out to a mutual friend, asked for my phone number. He never called. I don't chase him. You know, it is what it is. So I think Pat was a little scared to come on here, to be honest with you. And so for any of you pro Pat Gordon, but I give him a shout out for going on Sal's show. And again, like I said, I don't hate people because I don't agree with them. I think he was a man. He manned up on what he said about the O thing. It was a dumb thing. I thought it was, but I blasted him because if it was the other way around, I knew he would have blasted those people. So I stepped up, and that's what I was pissed about. And he said it was a dumb thing, and I respect it. You know what I mean? I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him about most of the scenarios that he spoke on, and that's fine. I mean, that's it. Why I was going to hate him because he has a different opinion than me? No, I don't care. I actually I never really had too much of an issue with Pat Gordon, and now I really don't have any issue with him at all. So I don't agree with him. That's about 99.99999% of people on Earth. So
you know what? You know what, John? I think this platform and this chat, it validates everything we've been saying. Like the lack of leadership. I feel sorry for those cops that are out there that made that gun collar. I mean, honestly, outstanding to you. How could you get any training? We have a whole team from the NYPD dedicated to this podcast. You've got the Jujus of the world, Juju, Ulysses, Eric S., all these losers, clearly from the NYPD, who spend their time on this podcast. Maybe if you spent your time training your cops, they would actually, you know, we wouldn't have to worry about them shooting each other or going home getting hurt. So, but when we're saying the job has failed you, the job is people. The job is people. So most likely Juju and Eric S. and Ulysses and all these losers, most likely they're probably from the NYPD, maybe Kaz, maybe John Shell. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe there's people, you know, trying to suck up to them. But clearly, thank you so much for watching, by the way. I appreciate you being a fan. But instead of spending all this time, could you take some time out of the podcast Maybe we'll shorten it for you so you can spend some time teaching the cops. But if you don't know how to teach them, that's okay. We got this platform, and we taught them today. So we appreciate it. And maybe we couldn't find a shirt, but I know Kaz Daughtry could find new embroidery. That they can find. You know, if someone was buying it for me, maybe I would get a new shirt. A bunch of losers. I gotta love it.
Yeah, I disagree with you, Silver Spoon. I think it's finding a collar out there is so easy now. Okay, there's so much guns that are rolling around now. It's like
they're falling out of people's pockets while they get stuck.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, Ulysses, this sounds completely like John Shell. By the way, I don't know if it's John Shell, but if it is, dude, how you doing, brother? How's that? How's the salty dog doing? You couldn't find a call. I love this. That, by the way, thanks for being fans. Appreciate you taking your time, getting up early, watching the podcast. We appreciate it. Thank you. So all I ask, just like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah, a couple of things. One, DC, I've been looking at. There's a huge campaign in Washington, DC, prior to Trump coming in and federalizing it. You know what that campaign's called? Perception versus reality. So then I was like, wow, that's weird. I feel like I heard that somewhere before. And then I'm like, I heard that in Chicago from Brandon Johnson. Perception versus reality. I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. I feel like I heard that somewhere else, though. Oh, yeah, that's right. Eric Adams. Perception versus reality. So there's a clear deflection to go around crime, and it constantly is. We had the horrific school shooting at the Annunciation Catholic School in Minnesota. Just want to get your thoughts real quick. All we've heard is the demonization of Catholics from politicians. It's all I heard. And people on the right and on Fox News should all be ashamed of yourself, especially Trey Gowdy, who did absolutely nothing. He went up on Congress. He had all these great interviews, and absolutely nothing came out of it. And so then he became a talking head on Fox News, which is basically all he ever was when he was in Congress also. Right? Totally toothless. Nothing ever came out, anything he ever talked about. And so they're saying that this isn't a time to pray. And they're also calling for gun control, a ban on assault weapons, semi-automatic assault weapons. They're saying that when you pull a trigger on a semi-automatic weapon, so many bullets fly out that it's insane. Like, no, sorry, that's not actually a semi-automatic. Means you have to pull the trigger over and over again. And fully automatic, which is federally banned already, is what you're describing, and we already have a ban on that in this country. What do you guys think about it? Like, what are your thoughts? And just before we wrap this up, like, obviously it was horrific, but what are your thoughts? Like, what should be the public safety plan going forward?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone. 2 hours and 27 minutes into it. Like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate it. First of all, I hate the fact that they brand everything as an assault rifle, and they have no idea what assault rifle is. A semi-automatic weapon exactly is that, where you have to pull the trigger each time to actually deploy a bullet or a round from your weapon. That's not an assault rifle. And even with that, you could make a 3-round burst in some different firearms. That's not an assault rifle. But they want to put this sexy name onto it because that's what sells and that's what gets people interested. First of all, this was every parent's nightmare. John, you put out a video. I agree. This is demons, evil, however you want to say it. Let's stop trying to say, oh, yeah, there's a mental health problem. There is, but this is just pure evil. Anyone that could take the life or the lives of children is pure evil. This is every parent's nightmare. But what I find ironic about this whole thing is that many politicians are pushing this ban on guns. And yet we have men armed with guns at banks. We have men armed with guns at high-profile buildings. We have men armed with guns protecting politicians. The same politicians that want to ban firearms, many of those politicians have their own armed security. And yet our most vulnerable, our gems, our most vulnerable targets, our kids, go to schools where they're in the hands of teachers, or they go to church or temple or mosque and they're in the hands of God, are soft targets, and we want to ban guns. I want to see, John, you said God-fearing men. Yes, I would love to see God-fearing men. But at least can we get men in schools that know how to handle a firearm? And they don't have to be God-fearing. I want them to be God-fearing, but I want them to be able to handle a firearm. Put men in schools or women in schools that are capable, that are in shape, and that want to protect the children. We protect banks. We protect high-profile buildings. We protect politicians. We protect mayors. We protect high-profile figures in the NYPD. But we can't put men with guns in schools? I'm tired of hearing this. Enough is enough. It's time for change. Let's put people in schools and churches with guns. That's how we combat evil, with good people that aren't afraid, that are willing to stand up. But a lot of times we have the conversation, oh, we don't want to put guns in schools. It's scary. People get stressed out. I was talking about this with a friend yesterday. I met in Alaska. We became great friends. Talking about in one particular location, they didn't want metal detectors because it's going to stress people out at the school. I think it's a lot more stressful if you have somebody running around shooting at the kids than having a metal detector. We need people with guns that are trained to protect our kids. And that's my position, and I'll stand by it.
Yeah. I get a little frustrated with this because there's that conversation that we should be having, and yet we don't, even after all these incidents. And that's the real conversation should be about, the pharmaceuticals and the antidepressants and the drugs and there should be an awareness of this for all cops. So if they come upon, they come upon a domestic job or they get intel from a parent telling them that they're about their child, that they shouldn't see the warning signs, and yet the conversation is always goes back to guns, and to me it's very frustrating, because the conversation is being led by people who don't want firearms, period, and they don't want people protecting schools. They don't want if you give them a chance, they would take guns away from cops, period, not just you, the civilian. And it's just it's silly, and it misses the real point, and it misses the real problems in society. And I bring this up many times whenever I hear our own intel talking about people like Rebecca and talking about the firearms or the right wing propaganda on the internet or some nonsense. And clearly we see one underlining fact, that one underlining thread that intercepts all of these cases, and that's antidepressants and their family situation. And yet nobody ever talks about it. I tell you, even in Intel, when I was there, like very few people in Intel talked about this. The only guys who did were the senior detectives who understood it. Nobody else is talking about it. And this is the major problem. And this is why this will continue happening. And even as schools are being disarmed, even as school security are being disarmed, and government is throwing more and more roadblocks in the way of civilians actually trying to protect themselves.
No, yeah. So you're saying that Rebecca doesn't have it then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
No, listen, but I totally agree with you. We're missing the mark. We're not talking about mental illness. We're not talking about the pharmaceuticals. I totally agree with you. Those are long-term problems that we need long-term solutions to. We need short-term solutions in the interim too. But we 100%. The easiest thing to do here is not say, I'm just going to disarm everyone in the United States. You're not doing it. There's more guns than there are people in the United States. So let's get that out of reality. We're not fixing mental illness. We don't even know anything about it. We're not fixing. Short-term solution, I want Mike Smith. I want people like Mike Smith at my kids' schools. I want armed men who are ready to meet violence, to meet people who are going to bring violence to our children. I want people there, prepared and ready. I mean, this is common sense, people. If I went to a school right now, what could we do to keep you safe? They're not going to tell me metal detectors. They're not going to tell me anything. They're going to say, oh, if we had a cop sitting out in the front with a gun that looked intimidating, that'll stop that. Because, I personally believe a lot of this mental illness is the devil's work. That's just, I believe in God. I believe that there are spirits in this world, both evil and good. And I personally think that a lot of the stuff that we talk about is evil. I think, people blame a lot of it on mental illness, but yet we see people with Baphomet tattoos. We seen that this shooter was literally drew about having a conversation with the devil, and you heard him on his video literally whispering to himself, and he was having a conversation, and it sounded like he was possessed to me. And I think we have to be able to really understand that we're fighting against some real evil here. And the one thing about evil, it's cowardly. The devil is a coward. He's not going to go somewhere where they're going to meet resistance. They don't attack. Same thing with perps, right? They don't attack people they don't think they could get over on. Cops that present themselves in a manner tactically and physically, they don't get killed often. People that always resist arrest will not resist arrest when they encounter that type of person who's ready. So I mean, just listening to it on the news from both the right and the left, just call for gun control and nonsense about how we need to respect trans people. Yeah, we need to respect everybody, but we also need to be realist too and say, you know what, there's something wrong with people who aren't sure whether they're a boy or a girl. And the suicide rate among the trans community is insanely high. So guess what, Rebecca and Jessica? I don't think that we should be hiring trans people in the New York City Police Department. I hate to break it to you. I'm sorry if that's going to offend you guys today. I'm sure. I know Shell's going to be hurt by this, and he's going to be calling up every trans community there is. Did you hear what he just said? Look what he said here. I'm saying it now. There is a high suicide rate amongst. We have to get into that. Where was this 100 years ago? It wasn't there. We have to be realists and stop being phony pandas.
Well, that's a great point, because we already have a suicide epidemic within the NYPD as we speak because of the internal pressure. So yes, everything that we can do to alleviate and to eliminate suicide, we have to take. We have to take steps appropriately to make sure that everyone is psychologically prepared for the NYPD. That's why it's so important that we put an emphasis and focus. And even Pat mentioned it yesterday. Pat Gordon on Sal Greco's show about the psychological evaluations of police officers. We need to make sure that the right police officers are being hired. Not just meek, timid, and docile. We need alpha males, alpha females that have the characteristics and traits to do police work and that are mentally sane. And all it takes to be mentally sane is reasonable people with common sense. It's not scientific. Even when we broke down today about stops and how to engage people, potential for frisk or not, when you could search, it really comes down to common sense and good psychological standards. What would reasonable people believe and think based on their observations? That's all it is to be a police officer. It's just being a normal person. Rob Lucas, brother, makes a great comment here. My school has 3 armed security and an SRO. I love it. Absolutely. And to your point, yes, I want Mike Smith in my school with my kids. I choose to I'm going to homeschool my daughter. That's my plan. But if I do put her, when she's in jiu-jitsu school in the academy, or when she's at different types of schools, different learning environments, I want her to be protected. I don't want to, I want Mike Smith in those schools. Absolutely. I agree. We need men that are trained, that are willing to face violence. As I said earlier in this episode, that person walking with that hoodie, the average person lost in the neighborhood, a reasonable person is not going to ask that person for directions. You ask what the cops doing out there, I would hope that our cops are engaging that person. That's how we stop crime. That's why I say intrusive police work is the fundamentals, and it's the bedrock to public safety, because we need police officers that will engage the people that the average person does not want to confront or speak to. That's normal behavior. That's responsible. So here we are, 2 hours and 38 minutes into it. I want to thank everybody for this Friday roundtable. I think it's a great discussion. I think Wednesday there was a lot of great points. I think we put out a lot of great points today. You make your own assessment. This should be a training tool to make you better if you're an active cop out there. You're retired. You make your assessment. Your experience is knowledgeable. Police enthusiast, tell us what you think. We heard some people in chat today, what should the police do? You heard it here today. We're telling you what the police should do. And so for all the Jujus of the world, thank you for being here. We appreciate you being fans of the Finest Unfiltered. I guess we'll see you Monday. Well, we talked about this. Monday's Labor Day. So I think we're going to take off Monday. So Monday's Labor Day. Enjoy it, especially for the cops that are there. working the West End Day Parade in Juve. You be safe, be careful out there, be mindful of your persons of interest, and watch the hands, be safe out there. So Monday's Labor Day. We won't be here. Thank you, everyone. Marlon, John, what are your thoughts? Close it out.
Yeah, I just posted an article in the chat considering what's happened and our discussion about the need for actual cops in schools and a need for even more so well-trained personnel in this department. I just posted an article about the NYPD hiring assistant school safety agents. I mentioned it briefly a couple episodes ago, but so the job is now looking, because they can't get enough school safety agents, they're now getting looking to get even younger. If we're talking 18-year-olds as school safety agents, and they're looking to put them in junior highs and elementary. Now, considering what's happened, right, and these school shooting incidents, and how much of a soft target, an elementary school is, a junior high school is, think of it. The job now thinks that it's a good idea that, what's going to do the job are kids, literally kids, who won't get the proper training they need. I understand they're school safety agents, but they still need to know at least a modicum of intrusive policing. Okay, the job thinks that's going to do it. Okay, so we keep talking about these incidents that happen, and the NYPD doesn't learn, and we take no. The job doesn't take action to actually improve and to learn from these incidents and to prepare the job to adequately respond to those and be prepared for them to happen. And when I see this, I think God knows, thank God an incident similar to what happened in Minnesota hasn't happened in New York City. But I mean, when you see this, it's just, how prepared is the job for that? So.
Yeah. All right, people. All right, listen, have a great Labor Day. We'll be off Monday. We'll be back at you on Wednesday. We're going to have a great interview on Wednesday. Young officer who just resigned from the NYPD. Young prolific officer who recently stood next to the mayor at a press conference, and he's going to tell you about why he left. I know Ulysses and a lot of people here say, we're going to get canceled. You people have been trying to cancel us for 3 years. I was trying to get canceled from the day I left the police department. Good luck. Every time you guys do it, it's like pressure, baby. It's like a diamond. You put the pressure down and boom. So go right ahead. I don't back down from my comments. I don't back down from what I say. I hold them. I'll say it to anybody. Say it to God if I have to. So, it is what it is, and that's how we are. So we appreciate everybody being on here today. We had about 700 people on here. Thanks for all your inclusion. And like we said, to those guys that we criticized and we picked apart, it's all love. We're armchair quarterbacks. We're doing it to make you better. We're not doing it to harm you or make fun of you or anything else. And we're doing it for everybody to weigh in on that conversation and talk. And listen, if you disagree, it's fine. You can send us a anonymous email, whatever you want. We'll answer your questions or we'll bring it up here. We don't, obviously you can't come on only people that like a Pat Gordon who's representing the organization that he's the president of, or a union rep could come on who's active. Nobody else could actually come on here. So, but feel free, any criticisms, and that goes for any of you retired guys too, retired or active. You have any criticism, anything I said, Eric said, Marlon said, let us know, bro. But taking shots, oh, you guys didn't do this, you guys haven't been in 3 years, that just tells me that everything we're saying right, and you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Have a great weekend, guys. And those of you on patrol this weekend, remember, it's a Super Bowl weekend. So you better be in your A game, and you better, be focused on the job when you get there. Get your all your other problems, let them, put them aside for now and stay focused, because you're going to be in that parade, and the guys across the street on that corner are going to be, armed and ready to put up shots against their rivals. So you got to be on your A game this weekend. But have a great weekend otherwise, and I'll see you next week.
That's right. The finest unfiltered. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Labor Day. You're right. If you're at Juve, be careful out there. And to those cops in that video, great effort, great job. Tactics is just something you have to constantly go over in your head. I used to analyze myself and say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. So be careful out there. And like John said, and Marlon said also, if you don't agree, send us the information. Critique. We'll critique you also. So yeah, critique is important. We have to be honest with ourselves. And honesty, unfortunately, it hurts sometimes, right? People don't like to hear the truth, but you need to hear the truth. The reality is in the truth, and we're not here to lie to you. So enjoy your weekend, everybody. Take care.
Yeah, don't be like this bum sitting on the bench without a gun belt, a vest on, no uniform shirt, sitting there sobbing like a little girl at Juve while all his cops are being left to fend for themselves and he's getting some rest sleeping on the bench. So do better than that. Keep yourself prepared, keep yourself hydrated, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, work out, right? Don't be this guy on the bench.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?